When you think of comedy from the last 20 years, what do you think of? Personally, I think about how many lives smoking has saved. Yeah, if you haven't already guessed, by that typical day at Dunder Mifflin, we're going to be covering the entire story of The Office. What better way to celebrate this beloved show turning 20? Now, often regarded as one of the greatest sitcoms of all time, The Office is an adaptation of the British mockumentary show going by the same name. The British version was created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, and ran from 2001 to 2003. The US version, premiering on March 24, 2005, was created by veteran SNL writers Michael Schur and Greg Daniels, and it ran for a total of 9 seasons and 201 episodes. The show was a hit with critics, winning numerous awards as well as winning the hearts of audiences worldwide. From its relatable office setting, characters that make us cringe, all the pranks and running gags, and the heartwarming chemistry between every character, similar to its British counterpart, The Office revolves around the daily life of a branch from a paper company, specifically the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company, and many of the characters are based off of similar characters from the British version. Let's meet some of them before we begin. First up is the world's best boss and always unprofessional Michael Scott, played by Steve Carell. Instead of being productive, Michael will spend most of his time goofing off, making people uncomfortable, or being as immature as he can because he loves being the center of attention. Loyal by his side, and maybe a little too loyal, is salesman Dwight Schrute, assistant to the regional manager. Played by Rainn Wilson, the beat farmer is a naive yet gullible individual who's always at the mercy of his fellow salesman and part-time prankster Jim Halpert, played by John Krasinski. In comedic terms, Jim is the straight man in this show, known for always looking at the camera when something suggestive takes place, and for pulling hilarious pranks on Dwight when he won't stop bugging him. The two of them have a sort of love-hate relationship. Jim also has a huge crush on the office's shy but friendly receptionist Pam Beesly, played by Jenna Fisher, who sadly is already engaged to somebody else, kinda creating a will they won't they arc for the two of them. There are many more fun characters to introduce, like Andy and Aaron, and we'll get to them eventually. So grab your world's best boss mug, dust off your Dundies, and let's dive right into the chaotic world of The Office. It's gonna get messy. Starting off where it all began. The show's pilot. The pilot for the series was an almost exact recreation of the first episode of the British series, even hiring Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant to write the episode. The episode begins with Michael giving the camera crew a brief tour of the office, introducing a bit of himself. He stops by Pam's desk and displays his unique style of humor in front of her. Pam tells Michael that there was a fax from corporate, and Michael jokingly scolds her for not putting anything corporate-related in the special filing cabinet, the trash. A few minutes later, the branch's supervisor, Jan Levinson, arrives to have a meeting with Michael. Unlike Michael, Jan has no sense of humor and is all about business. But as they say, opposites attract, right? Yeah, more on that later.
Well, I faxed one over to you this morning.
Really? Because I didn't,
You put it in the garbage can that was a special filing cabinet.
After going over a few things, Jan asks Michael if he'd like to add anything to the agenda. Michael doesn't know what she's talking about, and Pam reveals that the agenda was that fax Michael put in their special filing cabinet. This doesn't look very good for Michael. Turns out, there is talk of downsizing in the company, and Jan tells Michael that he may need to fire somebody at some point, which Michael really does not want to do because he loves his employees equally. Michael holds a meeting in the conference room where he explains that there's going to be downsizing. And despite his best efforts to downsize the scare, people are very worried, strongly voicing their opinions to an immature Michael. During all of this, the new temp, Ryan Howard, arrives for his first day, and Michael makes him feel very welcome by doing his best impression. Wow. Definitely not giving Ryan second thoughts about working there, man.
watch this. Here you go.
Ryan is played by one of the writers and producers on the show, BJ Novak, and will eventually become Michael's favorite person in the office in a totally not creepy way. Michael introduces Ryan to a few people, coming over to Dwight where he bears witness to the pranks that started them all. This is just the beginning of Jim's pranks, and they only get way more outlandish and inventive as the show goes on. Dwight demands Michael reprimand Jim, but Michael can't stop making fun of the prank, and Ryan even gets in on the teasing, infuriating Dwight. Later, Jim invites Pam to come with him and some of the other employees for drinks, not at all trying to flirt with her, when they're interrupted by Pam's fiancé Roy, one of the warehouse workers, creating kind of an awkward situation for everybody. Pam reveals to the camera that she and Roy have been engaged for 3 years with no clear wedding date. To be honest, I don't think Roy really plans on setting one anytime soon. Afterwards, Michael and Ryan are talking in his office when Michael decides to pull an awful prank on Pam by pretending that she got fired. Pam starts crying, and seeing her cry, Michael tries to laugh it off, telling her that it was all just a prank. But Pam is furious. She storms off. Jim comforts Pam, still recovering from the prank, and we witness the beginnings of their will they won't they, before Pam leaves with an impatient Roy. Before leaving, Jim reveals that he puts Michael's World's Best Boss mug in Jell-O. Classic Jim. Speaking of classic, let's move on to another classic example of Michael trying to solve a problem when he is the problem. You know it well, Diversity Day. Due to some complaints regarding somebody being racist in the office, you can probably guess who, corporate is forcing everybody to partake in a racial diversity seminar. Michael is unhappy with how Mr. Brown, the diversity consultant, is advising everyone on how to be more tolerant to race, angering both Mr. Brown and everybody in the office. Confident that he can do a better job of raising racial tolerance, Michael decides to put on his own diversity seminar. Upon entering the conference room, Toby, the HR rep, makes a joke about them all sitting in a circle Indian style, prompting Michael to scold Toby and demand that he leave. Toby Flenderson is played by Paul Lieberstein, yet another of the show's writers and producers, and Michael absolutely hating Toby is another reoccurring gag in the show. Michael starts the session uncomfortably by having everybody, primarily Oscar, talk about their race. Oscar Martinez is one of the 3 accountants, and known for his big brain, is the only rational person in the entire office. The other 2 accountants are the slow, but surprisingly smart, Kevin Malone, and the always stuck-up cat lover, Angela Martin. We'll keep coming back to these characters throughout the video, especially Angela's fixation for being attracted to men in power. Michael then has everybody pick a card at random, and without seeing what it says, put it on their forehead. Each card has a different race on them, and Michael tells everybody to treat everyone like they are the race on their forehead and not hold back the stereotypes.
Why? Because Martin Luther King is a hero of mine. There's this great Chris Rock bit about how streets named after Martin Luther King tend to be more violent.
Naturally, nobody is getting into the racial stereotypes like Michael had planned. So Michael takes things into his own hands when their customer service representative Kelly Kapoor enters the room. Michael becomes really offensive and stereotypical towards Kelly's race, and enraged, she slaps Michael in the face. Kelly is played by another writer and producer of the show, Mindy Kaling, and was originally written just for this one scene. But eventually, she was written as a series regular when she became a hit with audiences. Michael, after being the only one in tears, realizes he may have gone too far, and he apologizes. During Michael's apology, Pam accidentally falls asleep on Jim's shoulder, which makes Jim feel a little better. See, while this Diversity Day was going on, Jim had been trying to keep his best client only to lose him to Dwight, which really upsets Jim. But after that sweet moment between him and Pam, Jim tells the camera that today wasn't a bad day. Well, it was definitely better than the day that Jim had in this episode, The Alliance, where what started out as a simple prank with Pam backfired against him in the end. With the threat of downsizing still prevalent, Dwight keeps bothering Michael for any information on who will be fired. And Michael, irritated with Dwight's constant bothering, is vague about Dwight's employment status. With nowhere else to go, Dwight turns to Jim, asking that they form an alliance to find out who's being downsized, promising to not screw each other over. Jim accepts, seeing this as a perfect way to pull another devilish prank against Dwight. Meanwhile, Michael throws a birthday party for their suppliers relations representative, Meredith Palmer, as a sort of morale booster for the office. Despite her birthday not being for another month, Meredith is the wild alcoholic of the office, who spends the majority of the show being as gross as possible. When a birthday card is passed around for everybody to sign, Michael tries to outdo everybody by writing the perfect birthday message, but his skill as a comedic writer is lacking. Michael does his best to explain the joke, trying more jokes that fall flat, making the situation even more humiliating.
I've already set the bar really high, and they're all worried about their jobs. You know, it's kind of dark out there.
To make up for this, Michael donates a generous donation Oscars walkathon to raise awareness for his nephew's cerebral palsy, thus saving the party in the office morale. Sort of. While this takes place, Jim, along with Pam, have been sending Dwight false information about everybody's plotting against each other in regards to downsizing, even going as far as to trick Dwight into getting sealed inside a shipping box. An overjoyed Jim then tells Pam that he also convinced Dwight to dye his hair so that he can spy on another branch, accidentally getting a little too intimate with Pam. Roy enters, seeing Jim holding Pam's hand, and aggressively approaches Jim, wondering what he's doing. Jim tries to explain that this was all some harmless prank he and Pam were pulling on Dwight. Roy turns to Dwight for answers, and Dwight devilishly pretends to have no idea what Jim is talking about, making Jim look even worse. Dwight reveals to the camera that he's no regrets betraying Jim. But Jim isn't the only one to learn a valuable lesson in the episode Basketball, where Michael learns the value of teamwork, sort of. Michael has challenged the warehouse guys to a game of basketball, and the loser has to work on Saturday. The warehouse workers are considered the low-level grunts of the office space, with everybody staying in their own territory, which keeps the peace. The leader of these warehouse workers is the smooth and relaxed Daryl Philbin, although he's the complete opposite when Michael's around. Can you blame him? Michael assembles his team, which consists of Jim, Dwight, Ryan, and Stanley because of his great personality. Stanley Hudson is the Eeyore character of The Office, But outside the office, he's a classy man who knows how to live it up. Michael asks Pam if she can be their cheerleader, not at all trying to her. Pam refuses, saying that she can't cheer against her fiancé, which creates some tension as Jim competes against Roy. Phyllis chimes in, saying that she'll do it, after getting rejected, being on the team, prompting Michael to desperately make her an alternate. Phyllis Lappin is played by one of the show's casting directors, Phyllis Smith, and was asked to play a character in the show when Greg Daniels and director Ken Kwapis found themselves more interested in her than the actors that were auditioning. Kind of a fun fact, Phyllis Smith used to be a cheerleader for the Arizona Cardinals back when they were in St. Louis, so her character wanting to be a cheerleader is just kind of a little nod to that. The game begins, and Michael unleashes the office's secret weapon, Michael. Thinking that he's the better athlete, plays terribly, relying on dumb fouls in order to win. Jim is clearly a pro at basketball, and when told to cover Roy, he doesn't hesitate to prove who's the better man. The game ends when Michael calls a vagrant foul on one of the warehouse workers when he unintentionally hit him in the face, coincidentally when they were ahead, so Michael and the office win. Daryl and the others refuse to come in on Saturday, and Michael completely caves, so everybody in the office has to come in on Saturday instead. At least they won't have to worry about downsizing, right? Moving on to the first season's finale with the episode Hot Girl, a purse salesman named Katie visits the office wanting to sell some of her handbags. Michael turns her away at first, but after seeing how hot she is, Michael lets her stay, letting her use the conference room, not at all trying to hit on her. Katie was played by an unknown Amy Adams at the time, and would stick around for a few more episodes before her Oscar-nominated career took off. Turns out everybody in the office finds her attractive, pointing out that she's hotter than Pam, which makes Pam feel self-conscious, especially when Roy says that if Pam and he weren't engaged, though he used the word dating, he would go out with Katie. Jim tries to cheer Pam up by tricking Dwight into buying a handbag, and it actually works. Points for Jim.
Come on.
Cut it out.
Come on, are you mad at me?
Stop it.
Are you still mad at me now?
Cut it out.
Are you mad at me now?
Michael takes his attempts to date Katie up a notch when he buys her an espresso machine using incentive money that was supposed to be used for an employee. Even though Katie's not that much of a coffee drinker, Michael assumes that she is. Katie's ride home bails on her, so naturally, Michael offers to give her a ride home, seeing this as an opportunity to get even closer to Katie. She agrees at first, but as everybody's leaving the office, Katie reveals that Jim is taking her home, because she and Jim are now dating. When Pam finds out, she hides her jealousy, hinting that maybe she does think of Jim as more than a brother. I guess we'll find out. Season 2 starts off with a wonderful night at the Oscars, or in this case, a wonderful night at Chili's, and the episode aptly named The Dundies. The Dundies are essentially Michael's way of awarding his employees for all their hard work, but not the hard work that you're thinking of. As you might have guessed, Michael is the only one who cares about the Dundies, forcing everybody to accept their cruel awards and sit through his lame jokes. No one has it as bad as Pam. For the past 3 years, she and Roy have gotten the longest engagement award, and every year it gets more and more humiliating. Feeling bad for Pam, Jim tries to convince Michael not to do that award this time. But Michael refuses, arguing that every year it gets funnier and funnier. The Dundies take place, complete with their usual dumb awards and equally dumb jokes. Roy, along with Daryl, abandon Pam, prompting her to get drunk, stealing drinks off of other people's tables. The Dundies come to a halt when a couple of random jerks at a nearby table start making fun of Michael and throwing food. Michael, embarrassed and ashamed, decides to end the Dundies. However, a drunk Pam encourages Michael to continue, prompting everybody to realize just how fun the Dundies can be.
Gotta be fair! And Mr. Horny, right? You know what I'm talking about!
Finally, it comes time to give Pam her award. And instead, it's the award for the whitest sneakers in an office. An overjoyed, drunk Pam accepts the award, and when Jim goes to congratulate her, Pam kisses Jim. Michael calls this year's Dundies a success, and Jim sits with Pam until Angela gives Pam a ride home. Before she gets in the car, Pam wants to ask Jim something, but changes her mind and leaves. It's probably for the best. They do say a drunk mind speaks a sober heart. Jim watches Pam leave as Elton John's Tiny Dancer plays in the background. Maybe one day, Jim. Maybe one day soon. In this episode, Harassment. Ooh boy, what a title. We are introduced to Michael's incredibly offensive best friend, Todd Packer. Todd Packer, another sales rep, is played by the always hilarious David Koechner, who originally auditioned for the role of Michael. I gotta say, I like David Koechner. First time I saw this episode, I hated this man. Anyway, when David Koechner didn't get the role of Michael, Steve Carell recommended David to play Packer, after working with him on Anchorman, and the rest is history.
Hey! Where did you get those clothes? At the toilet store?
Due to a case of harassment in another office, Toby informs Michael that corporate wants him to review the company's policy on the subject, which infuriates Michael. Can't imagine why. Toby gives a lecture on harassment, and Michael enters with an inflatable doll arguing the company's policy isn't fair to everybody, especially him. Michael and the other warehouse workers are then forced to watch Toby's dumb video on harassment. Daryl recognizes one of the actresses from a one-night stand, and Michael announces the shocking discovery in full detail, right when Jane and a lawyer walk in. Awkward. Jane and the lawyer inform Michael that he can no longer be as offensive as he wants to be, and Michael announces to the office that he's turning over a new leaf. Naturally, Jim points out how hard that is going to be for Michael, and he's not going to last long.
You always left me satisfied and smiling, so...
That's what she said.
Michael does realize that he and Packer may go too far with what they say when he sees Phyllis become the victim of harassment. He steps in and defends Phyllis. Maybe not in the best way, but at least it's a start. Like The Simpsons, The Office is known for their Halloween episodes. Fans look forward to them every season, seeing all the different costumes, especially whatever Jim decides to come up with, and all the fun shenanigans that everybody gets up to. However, in the show's first Halloween episode, called Halloween, Michael has to make a decision he has been avoiding for very long. Remember all this talk about downsizing? Well, Michael had been asked to fire somebody by the end of the month, and he still hasn't done it. So now Michael has to ruin somebody's day on everybody's favorite holiday. Michael procrastinates till the end of the day, trying to figure out who to fire, until Michael decides to fire their quality assurance rep, Creed Bratton. Creed Bratton is played by Creed Bratton, playing a fictionalized version of himself, and is the shadiest person in the office. Creed manages to convince Michael to fire Devin White, another quality assurance rep, and Michael gives in. Devin is furious to go, telling everybody but Michael is free to join him for drinks at the bar. Devin White was played by Devin Abner, and actually volunteered to be fired from the show since he had a couple theater gigs in New York lined up. So, you have to feel too bad for the guy. Despite doing what corporate wanted him to do, Michael still feels bad about firing somebody, showing that despite being the immature boss that he is, he still cares about the people that he works with. Speaking of caring, in the episode The Client, Michael proves that despite acting like a buffoon half the time, he does know how to do his job. Michael and Jan are meeting with an important client of theirs, so naturally, Jan wants everything to be perfect. Michael, on the other hand, wants to make sure the client has a good time, taking him out to Chili's instead of a fancy restaurant like he and Jan had planned. Meanwhile, as Pam was helping Michael find a good joke in his office, she stumbled upon a screenplay written by Michael called Threat Level Midnight. The film is about Agent Michael Scarn, similar to James Bond as he saves the world from an evil, world-ending threat. Naturally, she shows it to Jim, who convinces everybody to do a table read of the screenplay, even getting Dwight to join in, letting him read the role of Michael Scarn. Upon reading it, Dwight discovers a typo, that the bumbling, incompetent assistant to Michael Scarn who's causing the downfall of the US was originally named Dwight, and is most likely how Michael sees Dwight in the office. Dwight is furious, and he leaves. Back at Chili's, Michael and the client are playing Truth or Dare, and Michael asks a now drunk Jan about her recent divorce. Jan reveals that her husband didn't want kids, and after lots of fighting, they actually ended things. Michael comforts Jan, saying that it wasn't her fault, and Jan is touched by his words. Several drinks later, and getting to know each other a little bit, the client offers to give them their business. Jane is amazed at how Michael pulled it off.
Well, corporate's gonna go ballistic, but you think we could, Jan?
Michael and Jan celebrate, and Jan kisses Michael, prompting them to go back to his place. The next morning, Dwight sees Jan coming back to her car via taxicab and confronts Michael about it, saying it's not right for him to sleep with his boss. Michael defends their relationship, but Jan calls Michael, telling him that she regrets what happened, even accusing Michael of intentionally getting her drunk, which Michael denies. While all this is happening, Jim and Pam, in a way, had their first date as well, complete with a candlelight dinner, a dinner show involving Dwight and Kevin playing with fireworks, and slow swaying to music. They may not admit it right now, but it was very romantic. Speaking of office romances, let's dive right into the beginnings of the other iconic romance from The Office in the episode Email Surveillance. After a rocky start meeting the new IT guy, Michael now has access to everybody's personal emails. Naturally, this angers everybody, but worries Dwight as he tells Angela to erase any sensitive emails. Pam overhears this and tells Jim she's certain that Dwight and Angela are secretly dating. She tries to confirm this by asking Dwight and Angela vague dating questions to no success. Upon reading everybody's emails, Michael discovers that Jim is having a party and invited everybody from the office except for Michael. Heartbroken, he tries to get invited, since the alternative was improv class.
I'm supposed to meet my doctor here. Have you seen him? He's a very angry midget.
Boom! Freeze! Michael Schoon, FBI, you know you did!
During the party, Jim finds Pam looking through his room and finds his yearbook photos, and they share a cute moment together. Pam sees Angela and Dwight talking alone together, and Pam asks Phyllis if she's heard about any office romance. Phyllis mistakes Pam's question and assumes that she was talking about she and Jim, embarrassing Pam. Pam decides to give up hope trying to prove Dwight and Angela are a thing, making her wonder if there really is something going on between her and Jim. Michael decides to crash Jim's party, and the mood is immediately killed when he arrives. When no one does a duet with Michael on the karaoke machine, Jim feels bad, and he joins him. They sing together about being in love, as the camera pans over to see Dwight and Angela secretly making love in Jim's shed. Pam was right. Just like the Halloween episodes, the Christmas episodes are just as iconic, and continue some of the show's best moments. Like in the show's first Christmas episode, Christmas Party, the office is doing a Secret Santa this year, and Jim finally got Pam and is going to give her a teapot along with a few things like his high school yearbook photo that she saw at his party. Like all parties that happen here at the office, holiday or birthday, the party planning committee, run by Angela, is in charge of putting everything together. And it must go her way or else the whole thing is ruined. Michael crashes the meeting, telling everybody he wants this party to be the greatest office party that's ever been, especially since it's been a very rough year. Secret Santa begins, and people love their gifts. Pam loves the teapot, and despite there being a $20 limit, Michael got Ryan an iPod, which causes some tension between everybody. Michael hates the knitted oven mitt that Phyllis made for him, so Michael decides to turn Secret Santa into a white elephant gift exchange, or Yankee swap, hoping that somebody else is going to get his dumb oven mitt.
Michael should have asked the party planning committee first. He's not supposed to just spring things on us out of nowhere.
People begin opening gifts meant for other people, and they fight over who gets the iPod. Michael tries to get people to take the oven mitt, and finally, Meredith does, prompting Michael to accidentally open something worse than the oven mitt, Dwight's gift, causing Michael to throw a bigger tantrum. Finally, everybody has enough of Michael and his selfishness, especially when they hear he got a $3,000 bonus check, thus ruining the party. Realizing that he's become the very thing that he swore not to be, Michael goes out and buys alcohol for the party, despite that being against company policy, and people start to enjoy themselves again. During this, we meet Phyllis's boyfriend Bob Vance of Vance Refrigeration. Pam reveals to Jim that she was able to get the teapot and opens the teapot, loving everything inside. While she's distracted, Jim takes back the letter he was going to give her. Don't forget this happened. It's going to be important later.
Stanley Hudson. Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration.
Ryan Howard.
Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration.
What line of work you in, Bob?
As the party dies down, Bob invites everybody to another bar, and for the first time, Michael is actually invited to join them. The episode ends with Meredith exposing herself to Michael. Without hesitation, Michael takes that best and craziest photo that he said he would take. Mission complete, I guess. It certainly was a Merry Christmas. Now, the episode Booze Cruise begins with another morale booster for the office. Michael is taking everybody on a late-night booze cruise on a lake. People aren't as thrilled about it, especially since they're doing this in January. Everybody boards the boat and meets the ship's captain, played by Rob Riggle when he was still at SNL. And even Amy Adams shows up to play Katie one last time. Turns out the reason for this booze cruise was to do some motivational speaking, but the captain has other more fun plans, which creates some tension between him and Michael. At least Michael gets to show off his great dance moves, I guess. Jim and Pam take a break from all the partying, and Pam admits that she's been having trouble being around Roy. Jim acts like he's going to say something, but he can't, creating some awkward tension. The captain casually talks about his military days, and brings up a few times when he was almost dying that all he could think about was his wife. This prompts a drunk Roy to finally set a date for him and Pam to get married, destroying any chance of Jim dating Pam. Enraged, Jim breaks up with Katie. Jim confesses to Michael that he has feelings for Pam. In a rare moment, Michael encourages Jim to not give up, even if she's engaged to somebody else. Jim takes this to heart. Maybe one day his dream with Pam will come true. Then again, this is Michael that we're talking about, the man who can't keep a secret. And in the episode The Secret, Jim's worst fear happens. See, Jim realizes maybe telling Michael he had a crush on Pam wasn't the smartest move, so he begs Michael to keep things a secret. Michael, seeing this as Jim telling him that they are now best friends, becomes very friendly with Jim, taking him to Hooters and even changing his hair and wardrobe to look like Jim. However, when Michael took Jim to Hooters, he used the company credit card to pay for the food. Toby confronts Michael on this, saying that it wasn't business related. Michael defends his action, saying that he was doing this to help Jim, and then says the one thing that Jim told him not to do. Naturally, the news travels very fast through the office, prompting Jim to finally confess his true feelings to Pam.
You don't know. He is in love with a girl he works with who's engaged, so just cut me some slack, please.
Pam?
Jim says that he doesn't anymore, but he still wants to be friends with her. A shocked Pam says she always assumed that he did, but agrees to still be friends. Jim confronts Michael about what happened, and Michael is so ashamed over what he did, mostly because this might damage their friendship, and Jim forgives him. When Pam comes in, Michael tries to apologize to Pam and accidentally hints that Jim had a crush on Pam not 3 years ago, but on the booze cruise. While all of this is taking place, Oscar calls in sick with the flu, but when Dwight investigates, he discovers that Oscar's been lying about being sick, completely missing the real reason why Oscar took the day off. It seems there is more than one secret in the office. In the episode The Carpet, Someone, we'll find out later was Becker, has defecated in Michael's office, prompting Jim to temporarily relocate to the annex so Michael can sit at his desk. Jim is forced to sit next to a talkative Kelly and inadvertently finds himself playing matchmaker for her and Ryan. After lots of hesitation, Jim finally asks Ryan if he's into Kelly, and he is, but not sure if he wants anything long-term or not. Kelly definitely wants something long-term and goes on forever talking about it.
Please, please, Jim, please, 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 he's so cute. I like him so much, and I would do it, but I'm too shy. Please, Jim, please, 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 Jim.
This is an office romance that pops up every now and then throughout the show, so be on the lookout for it. Also, fun fact, Mindy Kaling and BJ Novak actually did have an on-again, off-again romance, so this whole storyline kind of mirrors what's happening in real life. And since we're on the topic of romance, let's move on to another romantic episode called Valentine's Day. Michael is tasked with making a presentation in New York for their new CFO, David Wallace, played by real-life stockbroker Andy Buckley, during which accidentally slips to the other managers that he's dating their boss, Jan.
Michael made that stupid movie. He doesn't get in any trouble. Maybe I should have slept with you too.
Jan is furious, and Michael promises to fix the situation, which really worries Jan. Michael convinces David that his relationship with Jan was a joke, and he promises to never do it again, adding that Jan is a wonderful person and Jan agrees to move on. But Michael leaves. Jan thanks Michael, wishing him a happy Valentine's Day, and then kisses him, thinking the cameras weren't watching. Meanwhile, everybody in the office has been getting Valentine's gifts from their admirers. Phyllis gets countless flowers and a stuffed bear from Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration, and Ryan realizes he made a huge mistake hooking up with Kelly the day before Valentine's Day. Dwight secretly gets Angela the keys to his house after Angela gave him a bobblehead version of himself. And Meredith gets wasted because there's no love in her life anymore. Oh my god. It's Michael's birthday in the episode, aptly called Michael's Birthday. However, people in the office are more concerned about Kevin possibly having skin cancer, among other things. Michael has had a history of ruined birthdays and really wanted this one to be special. Instead, Kevin's skin cancer ruined it. Realizing what is more important, Michael takes Kevin and everybody else out for ice skating to help take his mind off of things.
Kevin, we're going to take you to a very special place. A place that will make you happy and a place that is far, far away from the evil sun.
We get to see Michael show off his incredible ice skating skills. While they wait to hear from the doctor, Michael runs into Carol Stills, a realtor who sold him a condo earlier in the season, played by Steve Carell's real wife, Nancy Carell. Michael has fun with Carol's kids and impresses Carol with how well he interacts with them. Kevin's tests come back negative, although Michael, at first, mistakes negative for meaning something bad. So they have a joint birthday / Kevin not getting cancer party. Wow. Yeah, I'm sure it was the best birthday ever. In the episode Conflict Resolution, Michael tries to do Toby's job by resolving every past conflict that's ever been in the office. As one would expect, opening old wounds and bringing up conflicts that have been forgotten reignites those conflicts.
Every Friday at 4, I have a standing appointment with Dwight for him to file a grievance against Jim.
It is here that we see Phyllis admit how much she hates Angela. Ironically, out of everybody, Pam only has one complaint against her, regarding her wedding, and the name is redacted. Pam immediately suspects Angela was the one who filed the complaint, especially when Angela didn't get a save the date to her wedding. However, it's revealed at the end the one who filed the complaint for talking about the wedding all the time was Jim. See, ever since Roy set an official date for Pam's wedding, Jim has been really depressed, been avoiding Pam more frequently, and one day, he just needed to vent to Toby, and he slipped it out. Regardless, Jim has been feeling the pressure to transfer to a new branch. With Pam getting married soon, Jim doesn't feel like he has a reason to stay, especially since pranking Dwight just isn't really fun anymore. Wow, Jim is down bad. So the episode ends with Jim talking with Jan about possibly getting transferred to another branch. The season finale, called Casino Night, begins with another legendary prank on Dwight where Jim tells Dwight he has telekinetic powers. Dwight, obviously not buying it, dares Jim to move a coat rack, and surprisingly, Jim does move that coat rack with his mind. Man, these two are perfect for each other. Anyway, the office is hosting a charity event, or a casino night. Everybody's excited. Michael tries to invite Jan to come to it, but she says she's busy, so Michael instead invites Carol as his date. However, while on the phone with Carol, Jan changes her mind and says that she wants to come. So now Michael has 2 dates for casino night. Both women show up, not at all making things awkward around Michael and each other. Jan finds out about Carol and Michael, and she's furious, hinting that she really did have feelings for Michael. Kevin reveals 2 of his skills in this episode. 1, that he's a really good gambler, except when he plays Phyllis. And he's a drummer in a band. Roy finds out and cheers Kevin up by letting Kevin and his band play at the wedding.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right what?
What was this?
Roy goes home early and Jim and Pam are left all alone. For a second, it looks like Jim is going to tell Pam about him transferring to another branch, but instead, he says something he should have said the day that he met her. Pam tells Jim that he shouldn't have said that that they should just stay friends. But later, Pam is talking on the phone with her mom and confesses that she does also have feelings for Jim. Jim walks in as she hangs up and kisses Pam. Jim goes for another kiss, but Pam stops him. Jim asks her if she's going to marry Roy, and Pam nods. Season 3 begins with the episode Gay Witch Hunt. Jim is gone, and no one misses him more than Dwight. Jim now works at another branch in Stanford that comes with a better view. And the new version of Dwight, meet Andy Bernard, played by Ed Helms. Oh, I love this man. This Cornell alumni likes to call himself the Nard Dog, and he also has an anger problem, as displayed when Jim puts his calculator in Jell-O.
Who put my calculator in Jell-O? Or I'm gonna lose my freaking mind!
Sitting behind Jim is Karen Filippelli, who doesn't think much of Jim, at least for now. Back at Scranton, Ryan is no longer the temp, taking Jim's old job, right next to Dwight and close to Michael, so he's definitely having a great time between the two. It's revealed between season 2 and 3, Pam called off the wedding, and it really broke Roy as he hit rock bottom. But he's bounced back, and he vows to somehow win Pam back. Also, Michael finally finds out that Oscar is gay and has an awkward conversation with Oscar trying to apologize for all the gay jokes that he said in the past. Turns out, Oscar has been trying to keep this a secret as he still hasn't come out yet, and now the office treats him differently. Great. Jan confronts Michael, explaining what he did, but Michael defends himself, saying he didn't do anything wrong. People finally lose it when everybody catches Dwight looking at gay, since Michael told him to do research. Oh my god. Michael orders everybody in the conference room for a gay tolerance seminar. Oscar officially comes out as gay, despite always wanting to keep that part of his life a secret. Or, more likely, keep it a secret from the office. Things turn on Michael when Phyllis drops a bomb that when she and Michael went to high school, she always thought Michael was gay, because of how he dressed. Oscar has finally had enough of everything, threatening to quit, and Michael apologizes by embracing what it truly means to be gay. Also, fun fact, this kiss was unscripted, and Oscar's disgust is for real. Wow, this season is off to a great start. In the episode The Coup, Jan catches the office watching a movie instead of being productive, and she's furious. This prompts Angela to convince Dwight that he should be running the office instead of Michael. Dwight, open to betraying Michael, decides to meet with Jan about becoming the new manager. Jan informs Michael what Dwight did, and Michael can't believe Dwight would stab him in the back. To prove a point, Michael leads Dwight to think that Jan did give him his job, and everybody in the office is not happy that Dwight is the new manager. Angela is the only one happy for Dwight until she shows signs of being consumed by this new authority, casting away Angela like she's nothing. When Dwight insults Michael's car, Michael reveals that he knew all along about his meeting with Jan. Dwight falls to his knees and begs Michael to not fire him, and Michael forgives Dwight.
Please. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't fire you right here on the spot. I have excellent sales numbers! Not good enough!
But makes Dwight stand in the middle of the office with a sign that says liar. Angela now has resentment towards Dwight for the way that he treated her. Meanwhile, back at Stanford, Jim isn't able to keep up with the branch's daily match of Call of Duty, infuriating everybody around him. Except for Karen, who can't stop laughing at how terrible he is. As Jim leaves, the two of them flirt with each other for a bit, which might be the start of another office romance. In the episode Diwali, Michael does one of the most cringe-worthy things he's ever done. Kelly has invited everybody in the office to attend a Diwali celebration, and Michael is really getting into it. He invites Carol with them, but thought they were going to a sort of Indian Halloween party, so Carol is stuck wearing a ridiculous cheerleading outfit the whole time. When Michael talks with a couple that's been married for 30 years, meeting for the first time on their wedding night, Michael gets the bright idea to ask Carol to marry him in front of everybody. Carol, embarrassed by everything, leaves the celebration. Furious with Michael, Pam decides to comfort Michael, and they realize they are both facing similar situations regarding relationships. Michael then tries to kiss her as if it were a scene from a movie or something. Pam obviously rejects this kiss, and the two of them share an awkward silence. Ryan gets to meet some of Kelly's family and doesn't quite impress her parents.
So you're saving money now to start a family and home?
Or travel and buy an Xbox.
Meanwhile, Karen gives a ride home when Jim is too drunk to bike home. It's very sweet. The episode Branch Closing opens with another of Jim's classic pranks. Before leaving Scranton, Jim took some of Dwight's stationery and will sometimes fax Dwight messages from himself from the future. Today, future Dwight informs Dwight that someone poisoned the coffee, and Dwight heroically saves Stanley. Jan visits the office to tell Michael the worst news any boss wants to hear. They're closing the Scranton branch. Jan does tell Michael that some employees will be transferred to Stanford and work under the branch's manager, Josh Porter, while the others are getting severance, and Michael is one of the severed. Michael is devastated, more so over his employees' jobs and less about his, and breaks the news to everybody with dignity. Michael, along with Dwight, are determined to fight this by confronting David Wallace at his house. However, He's not home, and they end up waiting there all day. Meanwhile, back at Stanford, Josh tells Jan that he's instead accepted a job at Staples so they can't go through with the merger. Therefore, Scranton is not getting shut down. Instead, Stanford is getting shut down, and some employees will be transferred to Scranton. When Jim hears this, he tries to find out if he will be transferring back to Scranton, not wanting to reopen old wounds with Pam again. Jan tells him she doesn't know yet. Ryan had tried to break up with Kelly, but since the branch isn't closing, they no longer have to break up. Ryan admits that Kelly has some sort of strange power over him. Roy reconnects with Pam, worried about not being able to see her again, and tells her he's happy everything worked out in the end. Jim tells Karen that he's thinking about going back to Scranton, and says Karen should too. And Karen reveals to the camera that she does actually have feelings for Jim.
Hey, Andy. What's up, Josh?
Meanwhile, night has fallen, and Michael and Dwight are still waiting outside David's house, unaware they already got their jobs back, thinking they failed everybody back at the office. Dwight then gets a call, and someone tells him Stanford is closing, not them. Michael and Dwight celebrate, thinking that they were the ones who saved the day. Part 2 of this merger begins in the episode The Merger. Michael welcomes all the new employees to their branch, including Karen, Andy, and Jim. Karen and Pam hit it off right away, and Andy pulls out the jar on Michael, as he's trying to be Michael's number 2 man as soon as possible, which creates some tension between him and Dwight. Andy also makes things worse for Dwight by trying to hit on Angela, who's still mad at Dwight. Pam is so happy to see Jim, and tries to go back to the way that things were, but Jim is distant with her after being away for so long. When Jim tries to sit down at his usual desk, Ryan tells him that that's actually his now, forcing Jim to sit somewhere else. Michael has an integration celebration for the new people and shows off their new orientation video, which is him and Dwight rapping about how great Scranton is.
It reminds me of the orientation video Michael showed on my first day. The Scranton Witch Project.
I am so scared.
When trying to make a metaphorical point, he makes one of the new guys, Tony, very uncomfortable, and he quits, prompting Michael to fire him. This makes Dwight very happy because earlier he had told Michael to fire Tony, thus making Dwight look better than Andy. Andy vows to win the next battle. Jan calls Michael, furious that Tony got fired because now they have to pay him severance, and reveals that Jim is actually Michael's number 2 man. Dwight and Andy begin the fight for the number 3 spot. Come on guys, now you just look desperate, come on. At the end of the day, Jim catches Pam, telling her that he's dating Karen. Pam is happy for Jim, reminding him that they're just friends, right? It's Christmas once again in the episode Benihana Christmas. Michael shows off 2 tickets to Jamaica for he and Carol, but Carol storms in the office furious at Michael for taping a picture of his face over her ex-husband's on a past ski trip. Finally, having enough, Carol breaks up with Michael, leaving him with the dilemma of trying to figure out what to do with his non-refundable tickets to Jamaica. Karen is allowed on the party planning committee, but after her suggestions interfere with Angela's plan for a Nutcracker-themed party, Angela kicks her out. Pam feels bad for Karen, so the two of them come up with their own party that is much more fun than Angela's. Angela's furious when she finds out and makes Dwight try and cancel their party, until Jim, who now outranks Dwight, allows both parties to happen. Michael is still feeling depressed over Carol dumping him, so Andy, along with Dwight and Jim, take Michael to Benihana's. Dwight ends up sitting far away from Michael, letting Andy get close to his boss during his lowest point. Michael eventually feels better, and Andy convinces him to ask the cute waitresses to join them at their Christmas party.
Hi! I just haven't hugged you in a while.
The parties begin, and Pam and Karen clearly have the funner party. Daryl even shows off his amazing keyboarding skills. Feeling sorry for Angela and everyone else, Pam and Karen decide to merge the 2 parties together, and Angela agrees. Everyone has a good time, and Creed gets to show off his amazing singing talent. The waitresses start to leave, and Michael asks one of them to come to Jamaica with him, but she says that she has school. This makes Michael depressed again, and Jim comforts him, pulling from his own experiences with dating women, specifically Pam.
I put a mark on her arm. So I can tell them apart. I know.
Michael then calls a mysterious woman on the phone, asking if she'll go to Jamaica with him, and she says yes. Wonder who that could be. During all of this, Pam's Christmas gift to Jim was a prank on Dwight, and at first Jim didn't want to do it, but after everything and the talk with Michael, Jim actually changes his mind. The prank involves Dwight waiting for the CIA to send a helicopter to come pick him up. I guess some old habits are always worth revisiting. Back from vacation begins with Michael returning from Jamaica, and he has embraced Jamaican culture. Michael reveals when talking to Packer that the mysterious woman he went to Jamaica with was Jan, and tries to send an explicit photo of her to Packer to prove it. However, Michael sends this photo to Daryl, who then forwards it to several people, including Packer. Turns out everybody in the office now has the explicit photo of their boss's boss. Jan visits Michael and talks privately in his office. However, she's not here about the photo because she still hasn't seen it. Instead, Jan confesses her feelings for Michael and wants them to start dating. Michael accepts as they make out passionately. Don't let Toby catch them, that would be an HR disaster.
This is the thing, I am attracted to you. I don't know why.
Meanwhile, Pam helps Jim resolve some conflict between he and Karen. Later, she says to the camera that she had no problem helping out a friend, but a few minutes later, she's seen crying in the hallway. Poor Pam. Although, by the end of this next episode, Traveling Salesman, you'll be feeling sorry for Dwight. Michael has split the sales team into groups of 2. Phyllis and Karen, Stanley and Ryan, he and Andy, and Jim and Dwight, just to go on some sales calls. Andy sees this as an opportunity to keep making Dwight look bad and learns about the time Dwight betrayed Michael. Andy's plan completely backfires when he keeps messing up every sale, angering Michael. Phyllis takes Karen to get her hair done, which makes no sense at first, but when they see their client, Karen realizes Phyllis is as smart as she is sweet. Stanley makes Ryan look like a fool in front of his clients when Ryan, power-hungry, asks Stanley if he can take the lead. Ironically, despite being enemies in the office, Jim and Dwight are the perfect sales team in the field. I guess opposites do attract.
It's one of the big guys. Been on hold this whole time. And this is Dunder Mifflin.
Dunder Mifflin customer service, it's Kelly.
Hey Kelly, it's Jim.
Oh my god, Jim, how are you? I wanted to tell you.
On the way back, Phyllis accidentally tells Karen that Jim used to like Pam, which upsets her. Still determined to make Dwight look bad, Andy uncovers that Dwight was at corporate headquarters in New York that morning fixing a problem that Angela made regarding misplaced tax forms. Michael doesn't know this, neither does Andy, and demands that Dwight reveal what he did. For fear of their relationship being revealed, Angela begs Dwight not to say anything. Dwight loves Angela too much, and he resigns from Scranton. Andy gloats in his victory, now having secured the number 3 spot. During this, Karen reveals to Jim she knows about he and Pam, and Jim explains he has no more feelings for her, and that he's happy Karen made the move to Scranton. In the episode The Return, Michael realizes that he made a mistake in letting his most loyal employee go. Angela is very heartbroken that Dwight is gone, even going so far as to let Oscar join the party planning committee. Andy has taken it upon himself to become the new Dwight in the office, and both Jim and Michael miss the old Dwight. When Andy won't stop being more annoying than Dwight, Jim asks Karen if he'd like to pull a prank on Andy, but she refuses. So Jim and Pam pull a prank together, while Karen watches them, and they really overestimated Andy's tolerance for pranks. Angela finally opens up to Pam about her feelings for Dwight, even though Pam knew all along, and for the first time, they're not enemies. These moments are rare, so don't get used to them. Angela confronts a depressed Michael, telling him the reason Dwight went to New York. Luckily, she never reveals Dwight did it because he loves her, since Michael believes Dwight did it because he loves the company. Michael finds Dwight at Staples and apologizes for forcing him to resign, begging Dwight to come back and work for them.
I don't want to do your laundry anymore.
Can you talk about that?
Dwight comes back, and Angela politely welcomes him back, trying to hide her happiness. Karen confronts Jim after watching the prank and asks him one more time if he still has feelings for Pam. Jim admits that he does, breaking Karen's heart. The episode ends with Andy being sent to anger management, and it is no surprise why. The episode Phyllis Wedding opens with another prank. For some time, Jim has been trying the infamous Pavlov experiment where he made dogs salivate at the sound of a bell. But this time, he's doing it on Dwight. Here, every time Jim restarts his computer, he gives Dwight a mint. Until finally, I'm so happy Dwight came back. As you might have guessed by the title, this is the episode where Phyllis gets married to Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration. The wedding goes well, aside from Michael trying to be the center of attention again.
And do you, Phyllis, take Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration, to be your lawfully wedded husband?
I do.
He eventually gets banished from the wedding. Pam notices that Phyllis recreated what was supposed to be her wedding, during which she finds herself spending a lot of time with Roy. The two of them kind of get back together. Jim sees them leave and is disappointed, but reconnects with Karen. Moving on to the episode Business School, where we finally get to see Pam's artistic side. Prior to this, Pam had always mentioned that she'd wanted to pursue art school, because no one wants to be a receptionist their whole life, right? So at the beginning of the season, she mentioned that she started taking some classes, and today there's going to be an art show. She invites everybody from the office, but nobody shows up. Meanwhile, Ryan brought Michael to guest speak for his class in order to get a better grade, but after hearing that Ryan projected Dunder Mifflin to fail in a few years, Michael banishes Ryan to the annex right next to Kelly, which is much worse than getting fired. Michael shows up to Pam's art show and absolutely loves her work, hanging the picture of the office building in the reception area for all to see.
I don't see a price.
You want to buy it?
Well, yeah. Yeah, we have to have it for The Office.
Fun fact, this episode was actually directed by Joss Whedon, known for such shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and this episode involved a subplot where a bat attacks people in the office and maybe turns Jim into a vampire. This was all purely coincidental, apparently. The episode Cocktails is part one of something that will change Pam and Roy's relationship forever. In an attempt to be more honest with Roy, since they are now dating again, Pam tells Roy that before their wedding, Jim kissed her. This causes Roy to completely lose it, trashing the bar, and Pam leaves embarrassed. Meanwhile, Michael and Jan attend a cocktail party hosted by David, and it is the first time he and Jan can publicly say that they're dating, which Michael takes full advantage of. Jan tries to be aggressively intimate with Michael, but Michael finds all of her advances weird, which frustrates Jan.
Of course I do.
Scranton branch?
How are you, Michael?
Jan and I are lovers. This feels so good to finally say that out loud.
Jan admits being with Michael was more fun when they were sneaking around. The episode ends with Roy saying he's going to kill Jim, and you know what? I actually believe it. The next episode, The Negotiation, begins with Roy trying to kill Jim. Thankfully, Dwight saves Jim by pepper spraying Roy and accidentally everybody else. Roy gets fired as a result, which adds more work in the warehouse, so Daryl asks for a raise. Upon asking Michael, it's revealed that if Daryl asks for a raise, he's going to be making more money than Michael. Michael takes Toby and Daryl to confront Jan about getting a raise so Daryl can get one. He manages to get a 12% raise thanks to Jan. Roy apologizes to Jim and meets with Pam at a coffee shop, where the two of them end things mutually. Roy asks Pam if she's going to date Jim now. Pam says Jim already has a girlfriend, which irritates Roy because he knows Jim was the reason Pam called off their wedding. The episode ends with Andy coming back from anger management, and Dwight is very happy to see him. Yeah, right. Next up is Women's Appreciation, where we open with Phyllis in shock after a man flashed her in the parking lot. Michael at first doesn't take things seriously, saying how it's ironic the flasher would want to do something like that to Phyllis. After realizing he's not respecting the women in the office, he decides to take them all out for shopping at the mall. While trying to create girl talk, Michael inadvertently makes the conversation about his relationship with Jan, where Michael reveals that he's unhappy being with her. The women convince Michael that he should break up with Jan. The thought already makes Michael feel better.
Cons. Wears too much makeup. Breasts. Not anything to write home about. Insecure about body.
Michael then calls Jan saying that he wants to break up, but has to leave a voicemail right as Jan walks through the door. Jan doesn't hear the voicemail just yet, and she apologizes for how she's been acting towards Michael, hoping they can do better together. Michael agrees, and then Jan hears the voicemail. Meanwhile, Dwight has Pam draw what Phyllis said the flasher looked like, and I think this might be Pam's masterpiece. Season 3's penultimate episode, Beach Games, begins with David informing Michael that there's a position opening up at corporate, and he wants Michael to interview for it. This would then require somebody to take over for Michael at Scranton. Michael can't decide on who should be the new manager, so treats everybody in the office to a day at the beach, or in this case, a lake, where they will play a series of games and the winner will become the new manager. Basically, it's Survivor. Everybody competes, except for Pam, who's forced to watch and write down everything that happens. The games are your typical summer gathering sporting games that everybody knows, like the classic egg on a spoon race and eating contest. Stanley really gets into the games, desperately wanting to be the one in charge. Angela is on Andy's team, and she and Dwight work together to sabotage Andy in any way possible. The final challenge is for one of them to walk across a path of burning coals. Dwight immediately steps up when Michael is challenged to do it, and almost burns to a crisp trying to walk across it.
Being a boss is also about image. I've never looked like that. That was gross.
Since these games aren't working, Michael gives Jim and Dwight one last chance to prove their leadership skills with their humor, but Jim reveals that he's also applying for the same position that Michael was offered. Oh. Meanwhile, Pam successfully walks across the burning coals. Full of adrenaline and a newfound confidence, she calls everybody out for always being mean to her, like never showing up for her art show. She then tells Jim she called off her wedding because of him, and she hates how weird things have been since he's been back. She really misses their friendship. While Pam cools her feet in the water, Jim reconciles with Pam, saying he missed her friendship too, explaining that he left Scranton because he didn't want to be working at some dumb paper company his whole life. He adds he doesn't feel like he's back yet, but Pam says that he should. The two-part season finale, The Job, starts with Michael naming Dwight as his successor, and Dwight has never been happier. Pam apologizes to Karen about what she said, but doesn't take it back, which prompts Karen to call Pam to the camera. Jan shows up, and Michael is hesitant to see her, seeking help from Pam and the ladies. Jan tries to win Michael back, but Michael is steadfast until he sees Jan's new assets. So yeah, they're dating again.
Jan is in a different place right now, and it is a sign of maturity to give people second chances.
Michael leaves for his interview, and Dwight wastes no time as the new manager. Karen reveals to Jim that she's also applying for the same job, and the two of them spend a day together in New York. Karen asks Jim what will happen if one of them gets the job and proposes that they live together. Upon hearing this, Jim isn't too thrilled with the idea, but Karen is adamant that they can't stay in Scranton forever. Michael is interviewed and it goes pretty well, given Michael's reputation, that is. Upon leaving, Michael lets David know that he and Jan are back together, so he'll need to fill out another relationship disclosure form. David reveals that the position that he's applying for is Jan's. Michael tells Jan she's furious, refusing to quit, but she eventually has to. Before Michael leaves to give Jan a ride home, David tells Michael that they're not going to give him the job, so Michael decides to keep his job at Scranton. Jim and Karen watch this from the waiting area, and Jim tells Karen that they don't have to wait here all day, so Karen tells Jim that her friends are waiting downtown for her for lunch, and that when Jim is done to join them there. During the car ride home, Jan tells Michael that this works out great, because now she can stay at his place like they're a married couple. Michael's face says that he isn't really too thrilled about this, especially after hearing about the medication that Jan has to take because of the breast enhancements. Michael returns to Scranton, tells everybody that he's still their manager, and Dwight is forced to move back to his old desk. During Jim's interview, Jim finds a note from Pam with one of the medals he won during the Office Olympics in his folder. When asked about the future, Jim struggles to find an answer that doesn't involve Pam, prompting Jim to do another thing that he should have done a long time ago.
Everything is going to be totally fine.
Sorry. Are you free for dinner tonight?
Yes.
The episode ends with a huge plot twist, with Ryan getting the vice president of sales job and breaking up with Kelly. Season 4 of The Office is kind of a weird season, in that there aren't that many episodes because several of the writers participate in the writer's strike happening at the time. There's also no Halloween or Christmas episode this season, so sorry. But the writer's strike was important, so, Still, I think this season is just as good as the other ones. Season 4 literally kicks off with a bang in the episode Fun Run. More specifically, Michael hitting Meredith with his car. Michael breaks the news to the office and is embarrassed to admit that he was the one who did it. Everybody visits Meredith in the hospital and reveals Michael cracked her pelvis. She's furious with Michael, which makes Michael upset, thinking that he's not capable of helping people or ever being loved. The doctors discover that Meredith actually got rabies from getting bit by the bat from the business school episode, so in a way, it was good that Michael hit Meredith, otherwise she wouldn't have gotten treatment. Michael decides to create a fun run to raise awareness for rabies because, people shouldn't have to get hit by cars to find out that they have it, even though there already is a cure for rabies. Michael struggles to make it to the finish line, and Pam gives him some words of encouragement, reminding him that he is loved, which motivates Michael to finish the race. During this episode, Jim and Pam confirm that they are dating after Karen left Scranton following her breakup with Jim.
Are you kidding me? Pam and Jim are totally hooking up. All they do is smile. They're just keeping it a secret.
Dwight and Angela's relationship gets messy when Angela asks Dwight to give her cat Sprinkles her medicine. But instead, Dwight humanely euthanizes Sprinkles, seeing it as a more realistic option. Angela hates Dwight now, but finds some comfort from the Nard dog. We see more of their dispute in the episode Dunder Mifflin Infinity. Ryan is back for the day and is rocking a new look with his new job. Michael's happy to see him, still treating him like he's a temp, until Ryan snaps at Michael, reminding him that he's actually the big boss now. Ryan is here to tell them that the company is heading in a new direction, where things are going to be more digital at Dunder Mifflin. This causes some friction, especially from the older staff, for fear that they will be replaced by younger people, which, according to Jan, the company's been known to do. Good job, Creed. You don't look a day over 30.
Creed? Yes, sir. Everything okay? Everything's cool, dude.
Michael tries to argue that some old things are still great, even getting one of the old founders to come and speak. Ryan argues that the world is moving more towards technology and they need to stay ahead. Michael vows to prove the old ways are better by trying to win over lost clients with good old-fashioned gift baskets. Michael does his usual sales tactics to win back his clients, but they only care about lower prices, which having a website will supply, thus proving Ryan right. However, in order to find these clients, Michael has been using GPS. And the GPS makes Michael crash his car into a lake. Fed up with everybody preferring technology over an old-fashioned personal touch, Michael and Dwight take back the last gift basket that they delivered as a way of taking a stand. Michael then informs everybody that they won't be doing Ryan's plan, because technology made him drive his car into a lake. Business should always be about human connection. Meanwhile, Angela is still grieving the loss of Sprinkles, her cat, and officially breaks up with Dwight. Kelly tries to get back with Ryan, even going so far as to lie about being pregnant. Ugh, that's manipulative. Ryan finds out that she's lying and doesn't get back with her in the end. And in that instance, I can't blame him. Despite losing his rental car to prove a point, the website still gets launched in the episode Launch Party. To celebrate the website going live, corporate is having a big party in New York, which Michael is invited to, while the other branches watch from their own branches. It's one big giant party that showcases the company's expansion into technology. However, while driving to the party, Jim discovers that Michael's VIP invitation is actually an invitation for the satellite party, not the New York party, which is Ryan saying how much he doesn't like Michael. Dwight, still determined to prove a machine can't replace a person, competes against a computer to make more sales by the end of the day. Jim and Pam still pull a prank on Dwight by making him think the computer has gained self-awareness. Despite Dwight's best effort, the computer is still faster at making sales, leaving Dwight no other option but to use some of Staples' leads from his time working there. Dwight beats the computer and tells Angela he did it for her, but Angela still doesn't want to get back with him. Pam, pretending to be the computer, feels bad for Dwight, tells Dwight that he's the superior being, and yields to him.
How do you tell someone it's over? You send them a notarized letter, right? Well, what if the recipient is your notary?
Andy asks Dwight for anything about Angela wanting to try and date her, and Dwight says that he wouldn't know. When Andy tries to hit on her, Angela scolds him, complaining about all she has to do for the party. During the party, Andy surprises Angela with an ice sculpture like she needed for the party, and she's overwhelmed and very grateful. Meanwhile, Jim and Pam have another nice romantic date on top of the roof, where they reminisce about the times they knew they were perfect for each other. During the party, the managers are given turns to introduce themselves, and Michael used this opportunity to yell at Ryan. Andy tries to ask Angela out. At first, she says no, but after serenading her with a cappella thanks to his buddies from Cornell over the phone, she doesn't say yes, but she doesn't say no. He might just have a shot. In the next episode, called Money, we see Michael in desperate need of such. Ever since Jan moved in, she's been spending lots of money making changes to his life, which has forced Michael to secretly get a second job as a telemarketer. Jim and Pam discover that Dwight has turned his home into a bed and breakfast, so they decide to spend their first night out together at Schrute Farms, where we get a look at Dwight's life apart from the office. Mose, by the way, is played by one of the show's creators, Michael Schur, and pops up every now and then. During the night, Jim hears Dwight crying and goes to check on him. Dwight pretends to be fine as he's holding something that was Angela's. Ryan comes to view the presentation for the latest version of PowerPoint, but Michael, exhausted from his 2 jobs, didn't prepare anything, nor had he even opened PowerPoint.
Start. And up comes the toolbar. That's what she said. What we have to do.
Michael accidentally lets slip that he's working a second job, which worries everybody. Furious, Ryan tells Michael that he can't work 2 jobs if it's going to affect his work performance, so Michael quits his job as a telemarketer. After trying to find ways to make more money, Creed gives Michael an incredible idea. Oscar comes to Michael offering to help his financial situation, upon discovering that Michael spends too much money on unnecessary things and is so much more in debt than they first thought. Jan never knew because Michael never told her. Hence why she's also been spending so carelessly. Michael tries to run away from his financial problems by hopping onto a moving train, but Jan finds him, telling him they're in this together. Therefore, they will solve the problem together. Wait, this is Jan actually being nice to Michael? Meanwhile, Andy gives Angela a cat that she loves, and allows Andy to ask her out to dinner. Dwight gets very depressed, so Jim comforts him in the stairway, returning Dwight to his usual annoying self. Moving on to the deposition, Michael and Jan are driving to corporate, where Michael will be a witness as Jan sues the company for wrongful termination in the last season. When they get there, Ryan pulls Michael aside and tells him not to make the company look bad during his testimony. Of course, if he doesn't, then Jan would lose. Yet Michael tells Ryan he'll do anything for the company. Michael gives his testimony regarding Jan's termination, and for a time sticks to the script they rehearsed so Jan could win. When asked if his relationship with Jan was the reason for the termination, Michael denies this, saying they had already disclosed the relationship to HR and proves it by revealing the form he said he was going to frame back in the Cocktails episode. Corporate then shows the photo of Michael and Jan in Jamaica that Michael accidentally leaked. This was taken 2 months prior to when they officially disclosed their relationship, which makes Jan furious as this is the first time that she's hearing about it. Michael admits that they were having an on-again, off-again relationship for the past 2 years, which contradicts Michael's testimony, destroying Jan's case. However, Jan reveals that she gave Michael's diary to her lawyers without Michael knowing, that he reads the entry from when they came back from Jamaica where it states that Michael and Jan never considered themselves in a relationship, that this was a one-time thing. This infuriates Michael, as it's an invasion of his privacy.
Jan almost everywhere. He. Oh, diary, what a week. I had with my boss.
He's angered further when he reads a bad review Jan made of Michael's branch while they were dating. Michael can't believe Jan would do this to him, arguing that Dunder Mifflin would never do this to him. Even when they read an interview where David was asked if Michael was a serious contender for Jan's old job, where David admits that he wasn't, Michael still defends the company, throwing Jan under the bus. After the hearing, Michael tells the camera that he expects to get betrayed by his company, but not by his girlfriend. Our next episode, Dinner Party, easily one of the top 3 best episodes of The Office, begins with Michael inviting Jim and Pam to a dinner party at his house along with Andy and Angela, but not Dwight since this is a couples-only kind of party. Michael and Jan give a tour of the house where Jan shows off her candle-making profession and Michael shows off his giant plasma screen TV.
A lot of people in the room, you need more space. Voila, right into the wall. Wow. Sometimes...
During all of this, there is a constant awkward tension slowly building as the whole time Michael and Jan are being passive-aggressive. Dwight shows up with his date, who is his babysitter from when he was a kid, and Michael lets him, despite Jan never wanting him to show up, revealing she was the one who made the only couples allowed rule for the party. This makes Michael recount all the times that Jan got what she wanted, including the numerous vasectomies she made him get. Ugh. Did anybody else just cross their legs? When dinner is finally served, 3 hours after they arrive, Michael and Jan continue their passive aggressiveness, which then escalates into a very loud argument. Jan tries to calm down listening to music, but the argument continues until Jan loses it and throws one of Michael's dundies at his precious TV. Jan runs off to the bathroom and cries, prompting everybody else to leave. Dwight takes Michael to his home, and Jan spends the night alone, trying to undo the damage. If you haven't figured it out by now, this is the end of Michael and Jan's relationship for the rest of the show. The episode, Night Out, begins with Ryan telling everybody that they will have to work Saturday so they can re-enter sales they made on the phone as sales made by the website. This makes everybody angry, pointing out the many flaws with the new website. Nevertheless, they still must come in Saturday. Jim gets the idea that if they stay a few hours late on Friday, they will finish the work and not have to come in. Everybody likes the idea and finishes the work before Saturday. As they leave, Jim realizes that he forgot to tell the security guard that they were working late, so the parking lot is locked. Everybody waits for Hank the security guard to come unlock the gate, but it keeps taking forever. Toby, who's been developing feelings for Pam for some time now, accidentally puts his hand on her leg when everybody laughed at his joke. Embarrassed, Toby reveals that he's moving to Costa Rica. Then he hops the fence and runs home.
Like, hey everyone, let's get your boss laid Saturday.
Everybody else is saved when the cleaning ladies arrive to unlock the gate, and everybody finally gets to go home. Locked gates are the least of Stanley's problems in the episode Did I Stutter?, as we witness one of the greatest battles ever waged in the office. During a conference meeting on how to energize the office, Michael tries to get Stanley to participate. Like all conference meetings or anything that ever happens in the office, Stanley doesn't care or wish to participate at all. The man just wants to make his sales, do his crossword puzzles, and go home. Michael keeps persisting, which causes Stanley to snap at Michael, uttering the phrase, "Did I stutter?" which silences everybody in the room. Toby confronts Michael about the incident, saying Michael needs to talk to Stanley about not being openly insubordinate. Michael denies Stanley's insubordination, saying that he was only joking. Still, Michael confronts Stanley, asking him to apologize. But Stanley only apologizes when he thinks he's wrong, which is never the case. Michael then gets the genius idea to prank Stanley by pretending to fire him, thinking this will help Stanley learn some humility. Stanley gets upset, and Michael reveals that, oh, he isn't fired. What a cool prank. Thinking that Stanley learned his lesson, now knowing how Michael feels. This causes Stanley to become even more insubordinate in front of everybody, until Michael finally snaps, telling everybody else to leave.
Ooh, it's Michael versus Stanley, and it is the clash of the titans.
The two of them have a kind of heart-to-heart, and Stanley instead gives Michael a lesson in humility. Michael respects Stanley, but tells Stanley he can't talk like that to him, certainly not in front of other employees. Stanley respects Michael and agrees to see him as his boss. It's a beautiful moment, and it's this kind of stuff that makes you fall in love with The Office. Season 4's finale is the day Michael's been waiting to happen for a long time. Toby Flenderson is finally leaving for Costa Rica. Goodbye, Toby. Michael wants to throw a big party for Toby, although the way he describes it, it's more like a New Orleans funeral. Angela has finally had enough of Michael always coming in and ruining all the parties that she organized, so Michael turns to Phyllis. Phyllis, who absolutely hates Angela, agrees to anything that Michael demands. Toby's replacement, Holly Flax, arrives, and Michael already hates her because she's another HR person. When they first meet, Michael realizes they have one thing in common. They both do not like Toby. Michael reveals to Jim that he might be in love with Holly. Jim tells Michael that he's moving and thinking way too fast, and if he actually is in love with Holly, he needs to take things slow. Jim then reveals to the camera that he's going to propose to Pam during Toby's party. Michael finds Holly on the floor trying to fix her chair, and he offers to help. Michael tries to be funny around her, doing a great Yoda impression, and Holly doesn't really reciprocate this level of humor at first. Turns out, though, that these two actually have the same level of maturity, and Michael never has to resort to his usual inappropriate flirting tactics. Is it just me, or has Michael grown as a person? Michael and Holly sit with Toby for his exit interview. Michael's been waiting to do this for a long time, already rehearsed a horrible way to send him off, but because Holly is here, Michael doesn't want to sound like a horrible person. Toby opens his gift, which is a rock with a post-it saying, "Suck on this." Holly is shocked, and Michael tries to play it off like someone else did it. and then gives Toby his watch, saying that that was actually the real gift. Just then, everybody sees a YouTube video of Ryan getting arrested because he committed fraud trying to make the website look good. This makes Michael upset, and Holly comforts him, which makes Michael love her even more. Toby's parking lot party is incredible. And when Michael and Holly ride the Ferris wheel, Michael, for the first time in his life, resists the urge to say, "That's what she said." When Dwight puts a raccoon in Holly's car, Michael scolds Dwight, saying Holly's the best thing to happen to this company since World War II. What? Holly is touched by Michael's words, and literally touches his arm, which overwhelms Michael with emotions that he's never felt before. When the party runs out of barbecue sauce, Phyllis sends Kevin out to get some more. But when he gets there, Kevin calls Michael, urging him to come see something. This something is a pregnant Jan. Jan informs Michael that he's not the father, revealing that she went to a sperm bank while they were together. Ooh, wow. That's some next level rejection. Jan offers an invitation to start over, and Michael declines. Back at the party, the fireworks begin, and just as Jim's about to propose to Pam, Andy proposes to Angela. She says yes, so Jim decides to hold off on the proposal.
Will you please join me on stage? Okay, then I will come to you, my flower.
Dwight gets depressed, blaming himself for not being a better man for Angela. Michael misses out on a chance to go out with Holly, but after his recent talk with Jan, he can't bring himself to do it. As they walk away, the two of them look back at each other, signifying they both have feelings for one another. In his office, Michael calls Jan, saying he'd like to help raise her child. After the party, Phyllis catches Dwight and Angela cheating on Andy. Ooh, I smell blackmail. Season 5 begins with the episode Weight Loss, where corporate has come up with a fun way for people to lose weight, where whichever branch loses the most weight gets 3 extra vacation days. Everybody accepts, except for Pam, and got accepted into an art school in New York, which creates some tension between Jim and Pam, since we've learned they don't do so well apart. Also, Jim still hasn't proposed to Pam yet. Ryan comes back as Pam's replacement, now sporting a goatee. Ryan vows to one day get back on top. Ryan also tries to get back with Kelly, but Kelly's dating Daryl, so that's a no-go. Michael can't stop talking about how awesome Holly is, although it's unclear if Holly is open to dating or not. Andy makes plans for his wedding with Angela, not aware that Dwight and Angela are having secret rendezvous in the warehouse. The affair comes at a cost, as Angela is forced to resign from the party planning committee, so Phyllis won't tell anybody that they're cheating. Jane visits Michael, still pregnant, and Holly gets jealous knowing about Michael's past. When celebrating Stanley's birthday, several of the employees sneak down to the warehouse to eat cake, gaining weight like they are not supposed to. When Michael suggests that they have a party of their own, Holly says that she has a date with Oscar's yoga instructor. Michael's disappointed, but happy for Holly. Things get taken way too far with the weight loss when Dwight abandons Phyllis 5 miles away with no phone or money, forcing her to walk back. She complains to corporate, and they respond with a memo saying staff should not take such drastic measures for weight loss. Michael unveils his iconic Michael Clump character and gives a seminar on how being fat is beautiful, saying that they shouldn't care so much about trying to lose weight. Unfortunately, they end up losing the weight loss competition by 8 pounds. Still missing Pam, Jim has Pam meet him halfway from each other at a gas station. In a very unromantic setting in the pouring rain, Jim proposes, and she says yes. Later, Holly reveals that the yoga guy never actually called back, so Michael still's got a shot with Holly. Meanwhile, it turns out that poor Toby broke his neck in Costa Rica while ziplining. Ooh, that guy's the worst luck. The next episode, Baby Shower, begins with the miracle of birth. Jan is having her baby, and Michael can't wait to help raise it, even though he is not the father. Michael tells Holly that he won't be as friendly with her while Jan is here, so that Jan's feelings don't get hurt. Holly understands. However, when Jan shows up, she's already delivered the baby girl without telling Michael. Everybody attends the baby shower for Jan, which makes things awkward since the baby is actually already born. Michael's upset that Jan didn't include him in the birthing process, so Jan lets Michael hold the baby while she sleeps. Michael, who has a reputation for feeling overwhelmed with emotions when holding a baby, actually feels nothing.
You're gonna know them for the rest of your life. Well, he may not be here. Say hello.
Jan and Holly finally get to meet, and Jan right away doesn't like Holly. When Jan leaves, she urges Michael to not date Holly. Michael says he won't. However, when he sees Holly, he gives her a hug, feeling what he couldn't when he held Jan's baby. He then asks Holly out on a date, and she agrees. Speaking of which, the episode Crime Aid begins with Michael and Holly finally having, relations in the office, but they forget to lock the main door, resulting in the office getting robbed. Michael and Holly create a crime aid to raise money for the items stolen, but hardly anybody bids on anything. Jim and the other warehouse workers manage to get away and go drinking, or Jim runs into Roy. They catch up, mostly talk about Pam, and Jim tells Roy that they're engaged. Roy congratulates Jim, but when Jim talks about her life in New York, Roy insinuates that the relationship is falling apart. Jim drives to New York to see Pam, but immediately turns around knowing for a fact that the relationship is rock solid. Meanwhile, Andy and Angela have set a date for the wedding, and Dwight seeks Phyllis, the quote-unquote only other person who knows about their secret affair, for advice. Phyllis tells Dwight that she should make Angela choose him or Andy.
I never felt safe here.
You're always safe with me. I'm a very good screamer.
Dwight gives Angela the ultimatum, but Angela chooses Andy over Dwight. Dwight asks Phyllis on how to get her back, and Phyllis encourages Dwight to move on. Dwight hates Phyllis's advice, calling her selfish, and Phyllis slaps Dwight. Feeling bad because Phyllis was just trying to help, Dwight helps her get a $1,000 hug from her husband. The episode ends with David Wallace finding out that Michael is dating Holly, hinting that there could be trouble for their relationship. And we discover in the episode Employee Transfer that because of office policies, Michael's not supposed to date Holly. So corporate transfers her back to the Nashua branch, New Hampshire, which is a 7-hour drive from Scranton. Michael, along with Daryl, help Holly move back, and the two of them are acting like this won't affect their relationship. Along the way, they're hopeful that they can still make this work. Like if they were to meet halfway, they could still spend plenty of time together. Holly realizes this isn't gonna work, and she cries, saying the trip will be too much. But Michael is still determined to make it work. Michael confesses how much he loves and needs Holly and begs her not to end things like this. In the end, Michael decides it's best if he leaves Holly and goes back home with Daryl.
Oh, it's hard, Mike. Breakups hurt.
The two of them leave bittersweet, knowing they'll never love anybody else the same way again. Of course, nothing cheers Michael up more than first class on a plane. As in the episode Business Trip, Michael, along with Andy and Oscar, embark on a business trip to Canada. Still mourning the breakup with Holly, Michael has a one-night stand with the hotel's concierge, while Andy and Oscar drunk call Angela, which makes Oscar ask Andy why he's with Angela.
I'm so tired.
Michael makes the sale and angrily calls David to tell him everything on the trip was terrible, adding that David has no right to send Holly away. Meanwhile, Pam is coming back from art school despite failing it, meaning Ryan is going to go back to his old desk next to Kelly. Naturally, Ryan tries to win Kelly back, but she's not so easily seduced. Wait, what am I saying? This is Kelly we're talking about. So, with Holly gone, the HR spot is now vacant. In the episode Frame, Toby gets to come back to Scranton. Yeah, Toby's back. Michael tries to get Toby transferred, but David won't allow it since Toby knows the branch better than any HR rep. With no other option, Michael tries to get Toby fired by getting him to be seduced or start a fight. But Toby's too nice of a guy. Dwight tells Michael there's still one thing they could do to get Toby fired: frame him for using drugs. Michael acquires some weed from some guys at the warehouse and plants it in his desk. The cops show up and search Toby's desk. However, the weed that Michael was given was nothing more than somebody's salad. The cops leave, and Toby confronts Michael about what just happened. Michael denies everything, making it seem like this is all Toby's fault.
Punch you, Michael. Punch.
Meanwhile, Jim buys back the house he grew up in and asks Pam to move in with him. At first, Pam is overwhelmed, especially since Jim did this without asking her, but she actually loves it. Ryan breaks up with Kelly again, saying he has to go film Inglourious Bastards. Go to Thailand with some friends. The Season 5 Christmas episode is called Moroccan Christmas. As you might have guessed it, it's Moroccan themed, courtesy of Phyllis's excellent party planning skills. The party's a blast. Everyone is really into the Northern African vibe. Well, everybody except Angela. As the alcohol is served, Meredith gets way too drunk and accidentally catches her hair on fire. Because Michael cares deeply about everybody in the office, he decides to halt the party so that he can have an intervention for Meredith. Meredith tries to convince everybody that she's not an alcoholic, but Michael's determined to help her. Meredith still won't admit it. So Michael has no choice but to trick Meredith into going to rehab, which he discovers he cannot do because the person has to check themselves into rehab.
No!
Hello.
Oh, this man is crazy.
Can I help
This man is crazy.
I have a deposit. Alcoholic.
Meanwhile, Phyllis has been abusing her blackmail against Angela to the point where Angela finally snaps, resulting in Phyllis telling everybody in the office about Angela and Dwight's affair. Everybody except Andy, who just happened to be in the other room. Part 2 of this storyline takes place in The Duel, where 17 days later, Andy still hasn't figured out that Angela has been cheating on him. Everyone in the office, including Dwight, urges Angela to finally tell Andy, but she's too afraid, resulting in Michael telling Andy himself. Andy confronts Angela, and she admits that she's been with Dwight for a long time, even before she and Andy got together. Andy also asks who else knew about it, and Angela tells Andy that she loves him, but Andy doesn't believe her. Still, they agree to get married to prove everybody else wrong. Andy confronts Dwight, telling him to stay away from Angela, but Dwight refuses. The only way they can resolve this is through a duel, agreeing to settle this at 4 p.m. in the parking lot. But 4 p.m. soon comes around and Andy's nowhere to be found. Dwight finds a note from Andy taped to the bushes and has to get real close to read it, completely not hearing Andy sneak up behind him with his quiet Prius.
The Prius is silent if he keeps it under 5 miles per hour. He deserves the win.
Alas, after much consideration.
Andy runs Dwight over with his car, but Dwight refuses to yield. Something when Andy reveals that Angela has also been sleeping with Andy, though nowhere as many times as Dwight, that this makes them realize that Angela lied to both of them. Andy calls off the wedding, and Dwight officially ends things with Angela. Alright, let's move on from that sad storyline to the greatest and most watched episode in the entire show. Stress relief. The episode begins with Dwight recreating a fire in the office, while also intentionally trapping everybody inside as if the fire was all around them. This results in lots of screaming, panicking, looting, and gamer guys getting completely run over, until Dwight reveals that this is all a drill. Despite this, Stanley has a full-blown heart attack from all the stress of the drill. To no surprise, corporate is furious, because Dwight almost burned down the building and endangered everybody, and Dwight is stripped of his position as safety officer. Stanley's welcome back from the hospital is in order to find a way to relieve his stress so he doesn't have another heart attack, which is impossible for him to do in the office because, well, I mean, do I really need to explain? Come on. The office takes part in a mandatory CPR seminar where everyone instinctively creates a stressful environment and ends with Dwight wearing the dummy's face, Hannibal Lecter style.
Can you tell me why you had to cut the face off the dummy?
I didn't think it was very realistic in the movie, and it turns out it's pretty realistic.
During one of Michael's relaxing seminars, it's revealed that the cause for all of Stanley's stress is actually Michael. Realizing he's also the cause for the stress of everybody in the office, Michael decides to hold a roast. Everybody can voice how much they hate Michael. Nobody holds back roasting him. After a while, the roasts actually start to make Michael upset. He never realized that they all see him as a laughingstock. Michael doesn't come in the next day, but when he finally does, he roasts everybody else in the office. He reminds them all that they're the reason he went into the paper business. He loves each and every one of them. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Pam's parents have been fighting recently, and now her dad is staying with Jim and Pam. Jim reveals that Pam's dad has been spending more and more time with Jim, telling him things that he won't discuss with Pam or anybody else in the family. Pam asks Jim to get her dad to get back with her mom. Jim talks about Pam's dad, but shortly after they talk, her dad asks her mom for a divorce. Pam's furious, confronts Jim, but Jim has no idea what he could have said to cause this. Pam is afraid that Jim might do the same to their marriage one day, so she asks her dad what was said. Pam's dad reveals that Jim told him how much Pam means to him, and her dad never felt the same way with her mom. Pam forgives Jim, glad that he said what he said. Skipping part 1, going right into part 2 of the episode Lecture Circuit, Michael and Pam are going around the different branches telling everybody their business strategy. After David informed Michael, their branch had the highest sales. After Michael says he never got proper closure with Holly, Pam drives Michael to Nashua to see Holly, only to discover that Holly is on an HR retreat and already has a new boyfriend, AJ. Michael's heartbroken, hoping there's still some way that they could be together. Michael uses the presentation to grill AJ on his relationship with Holly, only to discover that she's happy without him. Even more heartbroken, he isn't able to finish the presentation and has Pam finish it. Michael finds Holly's computer and sees a document called Dear Michael and copies it onto a USB. Michael tells Pam what he did and she urges Michael not to read it, saying it violates her trust. Pam then offers to read it, and Michael lets her. Pam reads it and then deletes it. She tells Michael that Holly still has feelings for him and that's not over between them, making Michael very happy. Michael is also happy in the episode New Boss because it's his 15th year at the company. Dwight has a list of ideas on how to celebrate, but Jim vetoes every one of them because they aren't classy enough. The office then gets a visit from the no-nonsense intimidating Charles Minor, the newest person to have Jane and Ryan's old job, played by none other than Idris Elba. Charles gives everyone bad news about their 401ks, that there may be possibilities of layoffs, which is information Michael was supposed to tell everybody but didn't. Jim doesn't get off to a good start with Charles when he wonders why Jim is wearing a tux to work, despite Jim's efforts to explain the reason, which only makes things worse for him. Michael discovers that David has given Charles responsibilities that are normally his, and begins to suspect if his job may be in jeopardy. Michael and Charles clash over how to handle the office, and Michael finally has had enough when Charles dissolves the party planning committee that was planning his 15th anniversary party. He goes to New York to confront David in person, after repeatedly trying to reach him over the phone. In New York, Michael tells David that after 15 years, he feels like he deserves more respect, and shouldn't have to drive all the way from Scranton just to talk to him. David hears Michael and admits that he was wrong, but misses the point of Michael's argument, thinking all Michael wants is his party. Michael shakes David's hand and shockingly quits Dunder Mifflin. And quit he did. As we see in the next episode, 2 weeks. Michael has spent the past 2 weeks goofing off, far more than he would be when he did have a job, and hasn't spent any time trying to find a new career. Meanwhile, Charles is still stationed in the conference room where he interviews possible people for Michael's old job. Realizing he's not going to get hired anywhere, especially in the current economy, Michael decides to start his own paper company, the Michael Scott Paper Company. Michael asks if Jim wants in, and Jim advises Michael not to do this. Of course, Michael doesn't need his advice, arguing that he knows the market better than anybody else. Michael tries to recruit other people to join the company, but everybody says no. Even Dwight knows that it's not a good idea. Charles finds out what Michael is doing, especially that Michael tried to label Dunder Mifflin customer lists with his new company name, and has Hank escort him off of the premises, not even letting Michael say goodbye to everybody. Michael sneaks back into the office, however, to steal the client list and gives everybody one last chance to join. Charles catches Michael and is about to throw him out of the building himself when Michael gives back the list of clients. Ironically, Michael's desperate speech worked on somebody. Pam catches Michael leaving and tells him she's going to join the company on one condition. She can't be a receptionist anymore. She wants to be a salesperson. Michael agrees to Pam's terms, and they start their own paper company. Charles tells everybody that until they find a new receptionist, Kevin is going to be it temporarily. Uh-oh. Day 1 of Michael's new company begins in the next episode, Dream Team. Pam is very eager to begin, but Michael is having second thoughts about quitting his job and trying to create his own. Pam comforts Michael, and Michael regains his confidence, saying that they're going to need a real team and an office space because it's illegal for him to operate a business in his condo. Michael hires Vikram, who he used to work with as a telemarketer, as well as everybody's favorite temp, Ryan. Yeah, Ryan's back from Thailand, though it's revealed later that he never actually went. Somehow ended up working at a bowling alley. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Ryan is quick to join Michael's new company, loving the idea of working somewhere no one knows his past mistakes. They visit an investor who turns out to be Michael's Nana and her friends at a nursing home. Michael offers his pitch, but they aren't impressed by what Michael has to offer. The failed pitch makes Vikram quit and go back to telemarketing. At least he can make a paycheck there. Back at the house, Pam, who's been the only one motivated this whole time, begins to regret ever joining Michael. Michael gives Pam some encouragement, saying the only thing they can do is keep moving forward. With their dream team assembled, Michael tries to find an office, and the only place they can lease is a large storeroom in the Scranton building. It's hardly anything, but Michael and Pam are confident that it could work. In the next episode, Michael Scott Paper Company, Michael, Pam, and Ryan begin their first day at their new paper company. Michael unveils their new office, which is more like a closet directly below the men's bathroom. Nothing happens on their first day, except Pam and Ryan arguing over who should do what, with Pam being pressured to become another receptionist for the company. Michael tries to do a free pancake breakfast to promote the new business, but it's a failure. At one point, Pam escapes and asks Charles for her old receptionist job back, but it's already been filled by clueless Kelly Hannon, who goes by Aaron, because there's already a Kelly in the office. In a strange turn of events, it turns out Dwight and Andy are now the best of friends, and both of them try to romance Aaron, with no success.
I should leave. I should go and start my own paper company. That'll show him.
With all hope lost for Michael's new company, the phone finally does ring for somebody that came to the pancake breakfast. Pam makes her very first sale, proving that the company might just have a future. But if you haven't guessed by our next episode called Broke, that might not be the case. The episode begins with Michael, Pam, and Ryan doing 5 a.m. deliveries in a van that they think is from a Korean church. Why are they doing deliveries this early, you might ask? Because they can't afford somebody to do it for them. Charles informs the office that they've lost 10 major clients to Michael's new company. And for the first time ever, Charles is showing signs of fear. David visits the office and tells everybody that they're going to fix this. Although Phyllis blames David, saying if he had just returned Michael's calls, none of this would have happened. Michael and the others seek help from an accountant, where it's revealed that their low prices, which are getting them more business, are actually what's going to put them out of business, meaning they're broke. But Dunder Mifflin has no idea about this, and David, Charles, Jim, and Dwight come to the conclusion that the only way to resolve the matter is to buy out Michael's company. Dwight volunteers to go talk to them, but after hearing Dwight's idea to threaten Michael with a hive of bees, Charles lets Jim go, finally seeing Jim's potential. Jim offers Michael the buyout, and with no money in the bank, he accepts.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Michael and the others sit down with Charles and David and hear their offers. Michael shows off his negotiation skills and manages to get an offer of $60,000, which he rejects in favor of his old job, and that Ryan and Pam become salespeople. Although Ryan immediately becomes a temp again shortly after. David agrees to Michael's demands, and everybody celebrates. The season finale and 100th episode, called Company Picnic, has our characters take part in a Dunder Mifflin company picnic, where a lot of the branches gather and have fun together. It just so happens the Nashua branch is here, and Michael and Holly reunite, along with AJ, after so many months. Michael tells Kevin that he doesn't have any more feelings for Holly, but later he tells the camera that he still thinks that they're soulmates. Meanwhile, Dwight is determined to win the volleyball tournament this year after getting humiliated from last year's softball tournament. Turns out Pam is a natural at volleyball, crushing the other teams. Ironically, in real life, Jenna Fisher is terrible at volleyball. They had to use a CGI ball to make her look good. Michael and Holly have been asked to perform a skit about Dunder Mifflin's history, and they run off together alone, secluded from everybody to come up with ideas, during which they pick things right where they left off, still having that dorky, fun chemistry. Meanwhile, Scranton advances to the final round where they will play the head office, and the pressure is on. Michael and Holly do the skit, which is a parody of Slumdog Millionaire, during which they accidentally reveal that one of the branches is closing before that information was made public, ruining the happy atmosphere of the picnic. However, this motivates Scranton to avenge the closed branch by beating corporate in the championship round. Michael and Holly talk about next year's presentation, and he's about to ask her back, but he doesn't. He lets Holly go, saying he's fine with just getting any chance to see her, even if it's once a year. With the game close, Pam accidentally injures her ankle and has to be taken to a hospital. Dwight tries to stall the game so they can win, but at the hospital, Jim hears some news about Pam that makes him overjoyed. He tells Dwight to send in the subs because Pam is pregnant. Skipping over season 6's first episode with The Meeting, where Michael's job may or may not be at risk again. David visits Scranton to have a meeting with Jim. Michael's worried when he's not included in the meeting and tries to find out what it's about, even going so far as to hide in a makeshift cheese cart. David reveals to Michael that he met with Jim to talk about Jim becoming the new manager of Scranton, but that Michael would be promoted to oversee all Northeastern sales. Michael refuses the promotion, and Jim walks David to his car, where David tells him that he changed his mind about promoting Jim. Jim confronts Michael, wondering what happened in between his meeting with David and walking him to his car, but Michael denies he did anything to change David's mind. Michael calls David to verify this, and as soon as David answers, Jim puts the phone on speaker, where it's revealed that Michael did tell David not to promote Jim. Oh.
So you're changing your mind about Jim?
Absolutely not. Like I said before.
Understandably, Jim is furious. Why would Michael sabotage him like this? Michael tries to apologize, saying he didn't want to lose Jim, or Pam, and now the baby. David then calls back with a new offer. Michael and Jim become co-managers of the Scranton branch. Michael doesn't like the idea of sharing the manager position, but the alternative is losing Jim, so he accepts the offer. Jim gets a brand new private office at the other end of the main room, and of course, Dwight takes this news with dignity and grace, obviously. Moving on to the episode we've been waiting for since the very first episode, Niagara, where Jim and Pam finally get married. Jim and Pam have invited everybody to the wedding, and despite this being their big day, everyone sees this more as a vacation for them. Knowing how everybody in the office can be, they've instructed everybody to be on their best behavior. But most importantly, nobody say that Pam is pregnant because not everybody in her family knows, especially Pam's grandma, who's very traditional. During the drive up, Andy shares with the camera he's hoping to get closer to Erin during this wedding because he's got feelings for her. Everyone arrives at the hotel and gets their rooms, except for Michael, who didn't make a reservation and has nowhere to sleep. He tries asking around, but no one would dare share a room with him, not even Dwight. During the rehearsal dinner, Michael's not allowed to sit at the head table, which makes him mad, so he interrupts a toast and makes a fool of himself again. It's basically Phyllis's wedding all over again. Jim saves the dinner with a very romantic toast about his relationship with Pam and raises his glass. Awkward. Michael tries to save the day, but only makes things worse and more awkward. Pam's grandma says she's disappointed in Pam and now won't stay for the wedding.
So if you'd all raise your glasses, not Pam for obvious reasons, but everyone else, if you would raise your glasses.
Michael sees this as an opportunity to get a free room and pulls out the charm on Pam's grandma, where he convinces her to stay and forgive Pam for getting pregnant. But still, he doesn't get a room. Meanwhile, Dwight hooks up with Pam's friend, Isabel, and prevents Michael from staying the night in his room. Andy has a party in his room, and when he tries to do the splits, his keys accidentally tear through his scrotum. Once again, I am crossing my legs. Everybody else is too drunk, including Jim, so Pam is the only one who can take him to the hospital, despite getting married in 8 hours. Andy spends the night in Pam's room, gloating about having spent the night with the bride-to-be. Eventually, Michael finds somewhere to stay, although it's not exactly ideal.
Is that Pam? Hey, have her come out! Have her come out! It'll be like Coyote Ugly.
That's Michael. You're out with Michael?
Everyone gathers for the wedding. Phyllis's hat annoys Stanley, Kevin shows off his new hair and new shoes, and Erin offers Andy her jacket for him to sit on because the wooden pews are too hard for his injured ball bag. Pam puts on her wedding dress, and she looks amazing. Her friend Isabel tells Pam that she's going to find Dwight since they hooked up the night before. Pam's confused and chases after Isabel, tearing her veil. Very upset, she calls Jim to come over to her dressing room. Pam explains that the veil's the only thing that would be perfect because being pregnant would have made everything else she wanted impossible. Jim, in response to this, cuts his tie in half, making them even. Pam breaks down, saying this was supposed to be their day, but there's too much drama with friends and family that it's been impossible for them to enjoy the moment. This gives Jim an idea. Back at the church, everyone is waiting for the wedding to begin, but Jim and Pam are nowhere to be found. Michael strikes up a conversation with Pam's mom, Helen, and opens up about how rough of a year it's been for his love life, something she's able to relate to with her recent divorce. Jim and Pam finally show up in a very good mood, and the wedding begins. Then suddenly, everyone starts reenacting the JK wedding YouTube video. The wedding party dances down the aisle, and of course, everyone from the office joins in. While this happens, it's revealed that the reason Jim and Pam were missing was because they took the ferry that goes right under the falls and got the ferry captain to marry them without anyone back at the church knowing. So it was a perfect wedding in the end.
I knew we'd need a backup plan. The boat was actually plan C, the church was plan B, and plan A was marrying her a long, long time ago.
That night, as Kevin cools his feet in the ice machine, the camera pans over to reveal Helen, Pam's mom, pulling Michael into her hotel room. Come on, man, not Pam's mom. Episode 7, The Lover, begins with Jim and Pam coming back from their honeymoon in Puerto Rico. Michael reveals to Jim that he's sleeping with Pam's mom, and Jim doesn't really believe him right away. Jim can't believe Michael would do this to Pam, strongly urging Michael to end it and never tell Pam this happened. But Michael's convinced this relationship would make Pam happy. When Jim and Pam are giving Michael his gift they got him from Puerto Rico, Aaron walks in telling Michael his dinner reservations have been changed as he requested. The reservations were made at a fancy restaurant, which makes Pam excitedly curious as to who the lucky lady Michael is now seeing. Despite Jim's efforts to rescue Pam before Michael tells her, Michael admits he's sleeping with her mom. Pam takes the news as well as you would expect.
No. No. Oh my god! Oh my god! No!
Pam voices her disgust that Michael would do this to her, but Michael defends himself, saying her mom is old enough to make her own decisions and deserves to be happy. Even her mom thinks so. Regardless, Pam still thinks Michael shouldn't have done what he did. Michael seeks the help of Toby, of all people, as a mediator for conflict resolution, but it only makes Pam angry. Their argument makes its way to the kitchen, where Michael says he only wanted to make her mom and Pam happy. Pam tells him as clearly as possible to stop dating her mom, which makes Michael say he's only going to date her harder. What? Pam storms out. At the end of the day, Michael leaves saying goodbye to everybody, including Pam. But Pam doesn't respond. Jim takes her aside and manages to cheer her up. He agrees she isn't overreacting, but Pam wonders if maybe she is. But as we find out in the next episode, Double Date, Michael may have made a mistake dating Pam's mom. Shocking. The episode begins with Michael taking Ellen out to breakfast for her birthday on a double date with Pam and Jim. Pam tries to get out of it, still not okay with Michael dating her mom, but Jim forces her to go. When they get to the restaurant, Pam sees that Michael really wanted to make Helen's birthday special, and she's touched by Michael's love for her mom. Pam jokes about how old Helen is this year, and Michael discovers that she's almost 60, which means when Pam gives birth, he's going to be dating somebody's grandma. Michael shares he has all these plans and fun adventures he wants to spend with her, but now he can't because she's too old for anything too physical. Michael realizes that Helen has already done all the things she's wanted to do, which makes Michael fear that his life with her will be boring.
The only time you should care about a woman's age is if she is too young for you. And I am not robbing the cradle. If anything, I am robbing the grave.
So Michael breaks up with Helen on her birthday, despite Pam now being okay with Michael dating her mom. Pam is furious with Michael, either because he broke up with her on her birthday, or maybe simply because he dated her. Yeah, I think either is a valid reason. Michael asks her what he can do to make this right, and Pam says she wants to hit him in front of everyone in the parking lot after work. So he accepts. Everyone gathers to watch the punch, but Michael keeps flinching every time Pam gets ready to swing. Finally, Michael apologizes to Pam for everything he did to her, and her mom. Pam forgives him, making him promise to never date anybody in her family again. Michael promises, but then tells Pam that her mom came on to him, and she doesn't take it very well. The episode Murder begins with some troubling news that will affect the rest of the show for the next few seasons. After reading a disturbing email from David, Oscar finds an article in the Wall Street Journal saying that Dunder Mifflin might be declaring bankruptcy. Everybody fears their job might be in jeopardy, but Andy fears this may be his last chance to ask Aaron out on a date. Jim tries to take control of the situation, make everybody get back to work to take their minds off of possibly losing their jobs, but Michael decides the best way is to play a murder mystery game. The game takes place in Savannah, Georgia, and Michael encourages everybody to play their characters to a T, adopting southern accents and creating backstories about their characters. Andy, still in character, asks Aaron out on a date, and she says yes. Although, when more people ask Aaron out on a date, Andy begins to suspect that Erin only said yes because she was playing a promiscuous character. Oscar causes some panic, who hasn't been participating in the game, when he receives an update from corporate telling accounting to stop all payments to their vendors. People stop playing the game and go back to work. Andy, still thinking he's talking to Erin's character, tells her the date wasn't real, which upsets Erin, as she reveals to the camera that she did actually think it was real. Michael is still determined to play the game, which irritates Jim, who still thinks playing games at a time like this is the last thing they need to do. Michael finally snaps at Jim, saying that the game is exactly what people need to distract them right now. David calls the office and tells Jim that things are not looking good. They suspect to be out of money by the end of the year. Jim, realizing Michael was right, tells everybody some bad news, that there was another murder and everyone is a suspect. Jim says to the camera that maybe it was good that they had 2 managers today, while Michael admits that it's the hardest he's worked in a very long time. Who knew hosting a murder mystery was so exhausting and so important? The next episode, Shareholder Meeting, continues this bankruptcy arc, where Michael is invited to be honored during a shareholder meeting. They're taken in a limo, and Michael brings along Dwight, Andy, and Oscar. Oscar has been looking at Dunder Mifflin's scary numbers all day, points out how idiotic the company is for sending a limo when they're about to go bankrupt. They arrive at the meeting, not at all seeing the group of protesters right outside, and Michael is escorted through some high security to where the other corporate members are being housed, including the company's CEO, Alan Brand. As Andy and Oscar find their seats, Oscar is upset at how expensive the hotel is for the meeting.
All right, guys. Are you ready?
Rock and roll! Andy encourages Oscar to say something, but Oscar is afraid he'd lose his job. The meeting starts, and Michael and the others are escorted to the stage, where they're met with boos and insults. Alan assures everyone that the company is not done yet, using Michael and his success with his branch as an example. Yet no one is satisfied because corporate hasn't said anything about a plan to save the company. Michael, feeling the pressure of everything, accidentally tells everybody that they have a 45-day plan to fix it, which is met with resounding applause. The other corporate members are furious with Michael because there's no such plan, and everybody's already given up.
Know how nice they are? They sent a stretch limo all the way to pick me up in Scranton.
Limousine.
Michael tries to script together a plan and calls Oscar to come help. Oscar is still afraid to lose his job, chickens out on the chance to tell the CEO how he truly feels. The members call Michael a moron, which makes Michael call them morons because his branch is the only one that's saving the company. When they take away his limo, Michael, Dwight, Andy, and Oscar all sneak out of the hotel and escape in the limo they came in, saying they're the only ones that deserve to be celebrating. As they drive away, the camera catches the Dunder Mifflin stock dropping exponentially. Meanwhile, Ryan has been slacking off and telling everybody in the office that Jim doesn't have the same power as Michael. So to prove him wrong, Jim relocates Ryan's office to the closet. First the annex, then the closet. What next? A shoebox? It's Christmas once again in Scranton in the episode Secret Santa. And the episode begins with Erin telling whoever is her Secret Santa, it's Andy, to stop sending her the actual 12 days of Christmas. She says this with a giant scar on her face from who knows what. Phyllis gets to be Santa this year, something she's been wanting for a very long time. And everyone loves having Phyllis play Father Christmas for a change. Everybody except Michael, who didn't know Jim let her be Santa when he already planned to do it. When Phyllis has her own setup for people to sit on her lap and tell her what they want for Christmas, Michael makes his own, letting Kevin sit on his lap when Phyllis told him not to because Kevin's too heavy. Kevin almost breaks his legs, and several cast members almost break character. I get it. I don't think I could ever stay in character if I was in the show. Michael, being petty as ever, dresses up as Jesus and cleanses the sins of the warehouse workers so they can enter into heaven, also known as the office Christmas party. The warehouse workers end up eating all the food and making things uncomfortable for everybody. Eventually, Daryl and the others turn on Michael, telling him parading around as Jesus is offensive, which makes him even more depressed. While Phyllis is giving out gifts, Michael heckles insults into the karaoke mic and lets it slip that Andy was Erin's Secret Santa. Jim turns off the machine and Michael hides in his office.
Got scented candles.
Oh, well, that's appropriate. A lot of fire where you're going. Better get used to it. You're going to HELL double hockey sticks. Going to hell, Stanley.
Michael complains to David that he can't be Santa, and David tells Michael that Dunder Mifflin is being bought by somebody. David is going to be fired as CEO, and there's a chance everyone else will be too. Realizing this may be actually their last Christmas together, Michael decides to save the party as best as he can, while accidentally telling everybody that the company's being sold. Michael, along with everybody else, calls David, where David assures them their branch is not fired, and this person that bought them only wants them for distribution. So the party continues. Everybody lives it up knowing that they still have a job. Michael apologizes to Phyllis by sitting on her lap, and Phyllis calls him a good boy. Meanwhile, Andy apologizes to Erin, who's furious he could ever think sending the things mentioned in the 12 Days of Christmas was a good idea. As they leave, Andy surprises Erin with 12 drummers drumming, cheering her up. So if you're wondering who this mystery company is that bought Dunder Mifflin, then let's move on to our next episode, Sabre, where we learn that an electronics company in Florida called Sabre, or as everyone in the office mispronounces it, Sarbre, bought out the company. We're introduced to Gabe Lewis. The coordinating director will be stationed in the annex, and the CEO, Joe Bennett, played by Kathy Bates.
This is gonna be a good day for Dunder Mifflin and
Sabre.
It's Sabre.
Gabe informs everybody that Sabre is a printer company, and that the branch will not just sell paper, but also printers. They'll also be cutting back their vacation days, which goes down as well as you'd probably imagine. Michael doesn't like how all these changes are going to disrupt the already perfect rhythm that he has with the place, so he asks Gabe if he can get a meeting with his Joe. Michael tells Joe that he's against these changes, saying what they had was already perfect. But Joe points out how mismanaged Dunder Mifflin was before she took over. Nevertheless, Joe tells Michael that if by the end of the day the changes still don't work, they'll go back to the way that things were. Still frustrated, Michael visits a deteriorating David at his house. Michael tells David about all the changes Sabre is making, hoping he would do something. But David's mind is in a different place after the firing, so he's no help to Michael. All David can think about is a $1 million idea about vacuums that pick up children's toys called Suck It.
That is some sort of weird creature that lives in David Wallace's house.
Michael finally gives in to Sabre's new changes and raises a toast to their future together. Meanwhile, Aaron awaits the moment when Andy will ask her out, but Andy, thinking he's already made a big impact with the drummers, assumes Aaron will be the one to make the first move. In the end, neither of them do. I think these guys really need to work on their communication skills. In the next episode, The Manager and the Salesman, we see Andy get just a little closer to asking Aaron out, more or less. The episode begins with Jo and her dogs visiting the office, and charming the office in her southern ways. However, she's not a fan of both Michael and Jim running the office together. So she says one of them must remain manager while the other's demoted to salesman. Both men still want the manager position, especially Michael. But Pam tells Jim that if he were to become a salesman, he would actually make more money than a manager because of all the incentives. Jim tells Michael that he's okay with being a salesman, and Michael of course accepts, until he also finds out from Oscar about the incentives. Michael tells Jo he wants to be a salesman again. At the exact same moment, Jim is telling her the same thing. Jo decides to make Michael the salesman because he's more experienced than Jim. Michael has a hard time adjusting back into the sales position, so Michael tells Jim they made a mistake and he wants to switch back. Jo is furious at the two of them for changing their minds about who does what, but lets them change back. And now we've come to the episode where Jim and Pam have their baby in the episode Delivery. The episode begins with Dwight catching Jim and Pam's soon-to-be-born baby as a way to get more money from sales. This prompts Dwight to approach Angela, whom he hasn't been intimate or talked to since Andy called off his wedding, and asks her if she wants to have a baby with him. He tells Angela to meet him in the usual spot in the warehouse, only to discover that Dwight is actually putting together a parenting contract, Sheldon Cooper style. After much negotiation, they both sign a contract that they agree on, but Dwight is having second thoughts about wanting a baby. While this happens, Pam keeps having contractions, and they're getting closer and closer together. Yet Pam refuses to go to the hospital. Pam keeps stalling until the contractions are 2 minutes apart, which is really bad. So Jim, Michael, and Kevin have to convince, or should I say drag Pam out of the office so she can go to the hospital. Dwight escorts them while Michael drives. However, when there's traffic, Dwight puts a fake siren light on his car only to get pulled over immediately. They arrive at the hospital, and Michael parks the car in the ambulance parking.
Dunder Mifflin, it's okay.
You can't park here.
While Pam's in labor, everybody else arrives and eagerly waits in the waiting room. Michael hears through the door Pam screaming, then silence, followed by baby crying. Jim comes out and tells everybody that they have a baby girl named Cecilia, or Cece for short. Michael gets to see the baby, making things a little awkward when he sees Helen again, and Jim lets him hold her.
Yeah. That's right. It's a baby, see?
Sir, you can't smoke that in here.
When everyone leaves, Jim and Pam have a hard time trying to be parents, and Pam has an even harder time trying to breastfeed Cece. A male lactation consultant comes by to teach Pam how to breastfeed, and Jim isn't exactly comfortable. Fun fact, the consultant is played by Jenna's real-life husband. No wonder Jim is jealous in this scene. That night, they hear Cece crying and try to comfort her, and miraculously, Cece finally gets fed. A sleep-deprived Pam is so happy, but that soon turns to panic. Jim and Pam are discharged from the hospital, and while Pam waits for Jim to come back with the car, Pam tries feeding Cece and she finally latches on. Pam's happy, knowing she and Jim are going to be great parents. Back at the office, Michael recounts his influence over the years on Jim and Pam's relationship, taking responsibility for the birth of Cece. He thinks himself a matchmaker and hooks Aaron up with Kevin. Aaron tells Michael that she likes Andy, but Michael pressures Aaron to be with Kevin, which makes Andy jealous as he watches their lunch date from the office plant. Andy finally works up the courage to ask Aaron out on a date. She says yes,
Just read the facts.
You read the facts.
I'm asking you out.
Oh my God.
Michael watches from his office, still convinced that all this was his doing. It's Joe's last day in Scranton before going back to Florida in the episode St. Patrick's Day, and Andy and Erin's first date. However, Erin gets sick and tries to feel better in time for their date later today. But when Joe sees Erin, she sends her home. Andy, afraid Erin might not like her if they don't have their first date now, pretends to be sick, and Joe sends him home too. Andy shows up at Erin's house. They have a cute little date at her home watching TV. As they watch, Erin's foster brother, who also lives with Erin, enters the room and takes over Andy's seat next to Erin. The two of them become physically close to each other, and Andy suspects that there's something romantic between the two of them. As Andy leaves, Erin gives him a long kiss on the cheek, telling him they're still dating. Before Joe left, she sat down with everybody one last time, wanting to know if anyone had any ideas or questions about the company, and Daryl came forth with an idea on how to improve the Sabre shipping method. Joe's really impressed with Daryl's idea and structure, and invites Daryl to leave the warehouse and set up shop in Jim's old office. Moving on to the next episode, New Leads, Michaels knows that Sabre has been treating the sales team better than the other departments, probably due to all the incentives and the new leads that are coming soon. This makes Michael upset because he would always treat every department equally. Everyone else has had enough, and Daryl confronts Michael, saying this needs to stop. When Sabre finally sends their new leads for the sales team, Michael holds on to them. Gabe calls Michael, telling he has no choice but to hand out the leads, so Michael agrees to give the leads to anybody that isn't a salesperson. To teach the sales team a lesson, they must now find a way to acquire their leads, either through clues or by listening to Ryan and Kelly argue. Dwight is late to the party and figures out Kevin has his leads.
If you want to find your leads, go to the man who never breathes. Kevin.
After strangling Kevin, he reveals he put the leads in the trash that Erin already emptied. Dwight dumpster dives an empty dumpster, which means the leads are on the way to the dump. Michael and Dwight go to the garbage dump and search through the endless piles of trash, trying to find them. Dwight and Michael start arguing with each other, saying they would have been better off had they never met, leading to a trash fight. Eventually, they get tired and realize they're never going to find them. Back at the office, the sales team was going to make things right and give them all 2% of their commissions, but their plate of desserts is more than enough. When Dwight and Michael don't come back with the leads, Andy and Erin go looking for them themselves. Andy gets cold, so Erin gives him her jacket and warms him up. Andy tells Erin she's the nicest person he's ever met, and he kisses her. Aw, another office romance is born. But will it last? The episode Happy Hour begins with Oscar, who's been trying to go out with one of the warehouse guys for some time, pitching a night out to everybody in the office and warehouse for a fun night out and drinking at an adult arcade. Everyone likes the idea, especially Pam, who's been all alone with the baby for weeks since the birth. Andy and Erin have been trying to keep their relationship from going public so as to avoid all the drama, as seen with any relationship that's taken place in the office. While playing pool, Michael is introduced to Pam's friend Julie, and the two of them hit it off very well. That is, until Michael discovers that he's here with Julie on a date. Enter Date Mike, who starts acting erratic and bringing out the worst in Michael.
What is a nice girl like you hanging out with these bums for?
There you go.
Julie laughs at everything.
Things get worse when he attracts the attention of the manager, Donna, who threatens to throw him out unless he stops. Michael stops, but then confronts Donna about what happened, and the two end up flirting with each other. During all of this, Andy, despite Erin's reluctance, has been trying to keep people from suspecting that they're dating, which only causes more friction between them. Eventually, Andy realizes this can't continue, so he grabs the staff microphone and announces the relationship to the entire place, which makes Erin very happy. Meanwhile, Dwight runs into Isabel from the wedding and spends time with her instead of Angela, thinking Isabel would be a more suitable mate. Angela reminds Dwight about the contract that they signed, but Dwight says the contract's been dissolved. In the parking lot, Angela tells Dwight he violated the contract, and we'll see him in court. But Isabel hits Angela and she runs off. Wow. Somebody who wasn't scared of Angela? That's a keeper. It's a special day for Erin in the episode Secretary's Day, and Andy wants to make sure everything is perfect for his girlfriend. Andy makes everybody give her gifts and makes Michael take her out to a fancy restaurant. At the restaurant, Erin talks most of the time, asking weird and random questions while Michael wishes that he were anywhere else. Erin then asks Michael about who Andy is, and Michael accidentally slips that Andy was engaged to Angela. Erin freaks out, hiding herself in her room, which is her hair. During the Secretary's Day party, Andy makes a speech talking about how incredible Erin is and sings a song that he wrote for her. But before Andy plays, Erin throws her cake in Andy's face, telling him she knows about him and Angela. She then speculates that Andy slept with everybody else in the office, saying she doesn't know him anymore. Andy is furious with Michael for telling Erin that private piece of information, and Angela tries to tell Erin that she regrets ever being with Andy. But it doesn't make Erin feel better.
Did everyone know? Was I the only one who didn't know?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
No. Who are you? I don't know you. I don't know you.
Andy finally confronts Erin about being engaged to Angela and tries to convince her there's nothing between him and Angela, no more secrets. However, Erin says she needs some time alone and breaks up with Andy. Michael apologizes to Erin for telling her that and makes her feel better by making fun of Angela. Andy watches from a distance, happy that somebody made her happy on Secretary Day. It's time to ruin another romance in the episode The Cover-Up. Ever since they met during the episode Happy Hour, Michael and Donna have been seeing each other and have been very intimate. Michael is once again happy. So happy that he asks everybody for ideas for his next date. As ideas come forth, Michael tells them a few dates that they already had, and a couple took place far away, which makes Ryan and Kelly suggest that Donna actually might be cheating on Michael. Michael then says Donna still hasn't said I love you back to Michael, which makes everybody now suspect that she is cheating on him. Regardless, Michael denies all these red flags, but can't help believing that maybe it is true. So Michael hires Dwight to follow Donna and find out if she's cheating. Dwight follows Donna to the gym, and after inappropriately trying to seduce her, he's forced to tell her that Michael sent him to spy.
Hey, young man, can you wipe down that seat? Get out of my way.
Enraged, Donna confronts Michael and convinces him that she's not cheating on him, and he believes her. Later, Pam notices the heart-shaped earrings Donna is wearing were not something that she would buy for herself, hinting that another man, not Michael, bought them for her. Pam does some digging online and discovers that Donna is indeed cheating on Michael. Michael sees the pictures and becomes very depressed. Michael confronts Donna about the pictures, but Donna tells Michael that he is the affair. She's married and has been cheating on her husband. Meanwhile, Andy keeps getting reports from clients saying their Sabre printers caught on fire. He takes this to Gabe, who denies everything. But Daryl wanted to get back at Andy for something he did a few years back. They end up filming a video of a printer printing until it supposedly catches on fire, while Daryl makes Andy look like an idiot. Ironically, the printer does catch on fire and explode. What started out as a prank may have just cost thousands of people their jobs, including Daryl. Now, you'd think finding out you're the affair would make anybody end it. But as we find out in the episode The Chump, Michael is still with Donna, loving the adulterous relationship. Everybody tries to tell him this is completely wrong, asking him how her husband would feel if he knew. But Michael doesn't care. Andy confronts Michael, knowing what it's like to have somebody cheat on you, and takes Michael to meet Donna's husband. Donna's husband, Shane, coaches the local high school baseball team, so they attend a game, and Andy forces Michael to shake hands with a man whose wife he's sleeping with. Ironically, this makes Michael not care even more, believing he can take whatever he wants.
I can't wait to see this jerk who is making me cheat on his wife. Just punch him in the nose for what he's making me do to her.
The rest of the office shuns Michael, and in retaliation, Michael tells them he's going to a motel to have sex with Donna, still proud of what he's doing. However, on the way there, Michael can't do it. So he comes back to the office and eats the ice cream everybody got him at the start of the episode to cope with his breakup. As he leaves the office at the end of the day, Michael is approached by reporters. Michael assumes they're here to ask him about his relationship with Donna, but they're actually here to ask about the Sabre printers catching on fire. Meanwhile, Dwight and Angela have a mediator look over the parenting contract. The mediator sides with both of them, saying the contract is solid but unenforceable, and Angela could sue Dwight for $30,000 if he breaks it. Obviously, Dwight doesn't have that kind of money, so Angela offers Dwight a settlement, 5 sessions. They have their first session in the usual warehouse place, right in earshot of Jim and Pam trying to sleep from Cece keeping them up all night. Does anybody get any work done in that office? The season finale, Whistleblower, begins with Joe making a grand entrance, wanting to know the idiot who leaked the information about the printers catching on fire to the press. She's so mad that she glues the story over Pam's picture of the office. Michael tries to assure her that it was nobody in the office, but Joe doesn't believe him. Andy panics because it was him and urges everybody to not say anything. When Michael confronts him, Andy admits it, and also says Daryl knows too, who accidentally told a female reporter at a bar. Meanwhile, Pam tells Jim in the hallway that she might be the whistleblower too after accidentally telling someone whose husband is a reporter. Michael meets with Daryl and Pam, and also Kelly, because she also told somebody as they figure out what to do. Pam convinces Michael to convince Joe to go easy on them, because there's no other option. When Michael tries to, Joe is way smarter than Michael, seeing right through him. She takes him to a private jet, not at all giving evil villain vibes, but instead, she sees that he's dealing with something other than the scandal. Michael opens up about how rough of a year it's been, and then he misses Holly. Meanwhile, Gabe does interviews and publicly announces that Andy was the whistleblower. He tries to deny it, but then the new IT guy confirms it after seeing everything on everybody's computer.
I just said my name just now. Did you forget it already?
No. Sport.
Everyone gives Andy the cold shoulder, telling him he shouldn't have done it. But Aaron tells Andy that what he did was brave. This cheers Andy up, certain that he still has a chance with her. Joe's afraid to give a statement to the press, not wanting the last image of her being a public apology, so Michael agrees to do it for her. Grateful for what Michael did, Joe asks Michael if there's anything she can do for him. And Michael replies, transferring Holly back to Scranton. Joe says she'll see what she can do. Season 7 opens with the episode Nepotism, where we learn a lot has happened over the summer. For instance, Michael has hired his incompetent nephew Luke, played by an unknown Evan Peters, and Aaron and Gabe are now dating. Andy says he's okay with this, but really he is not at all.
Wow, that's a lot of keys.
Bigger the keychain, more powerful the man.
That's right. Janitor said that.
Everyone tells Michael he needs to fire Luke, but Michael doesn't want to because he's his nephew, and he hired him hoping to make a good impression with a side of his family that he never talks to. Michael gets even more pressure to fire him when they find all the packages Luke was supposed to deliver to clients are still sitting in the back of his car. He confronts Jo about it, and she tells him he needs to fire him. During a conference meeting, Luke won't stop being inappropriate with a laser pointer, and Michael finally does what he should have done a long time ago. Okay, maybe not that. Luke runs away whimpering. Everybody in the office applauds what Michael did. Everybody, except for Gabe, who tells Michael he just assaulted another employee in a work environment. Gabe tells Michael that he must now undergo 6 sessions of counseling. The catch is, he would have to do it with Toby, or he will be fired. Michael looks at the camera, and he's not sure which option is worse. As you might have guessed from the next episode, titled Counseling, Michael chose to keep his job and reluctantly grind his way through a 6-hour session with Toby. Michael tries to spend every second in silence, but Toby tells Michael he can't count it if he doesn't talk. So Michael talks, but is still not taking it seriously, telling stories of when he was probed by Alf and that he's a werewolf. Toby pretends to give up and resort to playing games with Michael till the end. Michael finally starts opening up about a baseball game he went to with his stepdad, and Toby gets excited that he's finally making a breakthrough. However, Michael realizes Toby was playing him, literally and metaphorically, and he insults him. Toby lets Michael fill out the assessment forms however he wants, and the session ends.
But you know what? You can't help people. You couldn't help your marriage. You lose. I don't need your help. Nobody needs your help.
Later, Gabe confronts Toby on why he diagnosed Michael as severely depressed and homicidal, and it turns out Michael was in such a rush to end things he didn't realize what he was checking off. Michael blames Toby for the mistake, and then places the blame on Gabe. The two of them laugh, together making fun of Gabe, which makes Michael want to do the session for real this time. Wait, he wants to hang out with Toby? I guess hell has finally frozen over and pigs are flying through the air. The episode Andy's Play begins with a musical number from Sweeney Todd. Andy does theater work at the local playhouse and has invited everybody to watch the closing performance of their play. Andy invites Aaron and Gabe to see his play, although Gabe isn't able to come, making Andy secretly happy. However, Jim and Pam want to come, but their babysitter bailed on them at the last minute. Luckily, Aaron stepped in at the last second and saved the day, disappointing Andy. The play goes well, aside from Michael's interruptions and Andy's cell phone going off, then a baby starts crying. Pam sees Aaron had brought Cece to the show, which makes Andy visibly happy.
Sounds like Cece.
Okay, I think everybody just needs to relax.
Oh my god, go!
Oh my god.
Jim and Pam scold Aaron for not knowing how to take care of a baby and leave. After the play, Andy and Aaron spend some time together, having fun backstage and just talking like friends. Gabe calls Aaron and she has to leave, which makes Andy depressed, wishing he had more time with her. Everybody at the office finds Andy sitting on stage and they comfort him, telling him he did a great job. You gotta admit, the guy can sing. Instead, Michael comes to the office wearing a fake mustache, saying he's being spontaneous again until it's revealed that he's covering up his herpes. Dwight tells Michael he needs to call every woman that he's ever been with throughout the entire show and tell them that they should get checked out. Michael calls Donna and Holly, although he has a hard time trying to tell Holly and hangs up before he can tell her. He then visits Jane in person, who is now the office manager for a hospital, and gets to meet her daughter Astrid, who's grown up very fast. Next is Helen, and by this time, Michael has wondered why all these relationships failed. Helen can't believe Michael could be this insensitive, saying his memory has deluded him.
I'm Michael. We dated for a while.
I don't think so. Michael?
Oh, hey!
He tells Carol next, and after asking where their relationship went wrong, Carol points out how they weren't really even in love when he proposed to her. She adds that he always has to romanticize everything. Michael leaves a message with Holly and tells her about seeing the other women that he's dated, saying that he was not happy to see all of them, but he was the happiest when he called her. He then adds that she might have herpes. The episode ends with Michael suspecting Oscar gave him the herpes when they kissed that one time. Yeah, A+, Michael. It's a real Sherlock Holmes situation over here. In Viewing Party, Gabe is hosting a Glee watch party and has invited everybody. Michael finds out the reason everybody is going is because everyone thinks Gabe is the boss, not Michael, which infuriates him. Michael sees the way Gabe lives and immediately hates everything about him, not understanding how people could think that he was cooler and the boss of him. Angry that Gabe is getting all the attention, Michael sabotages the watch party by turning off the cable. Seeing everybody annoyed that the party is ruined, Michael pretends to fix the situation, only for Aaron to come out and catch him in the act. Aaron asks why Michael doesn't like Gabe, adding that she really cares if he likes him because she sees Michael as a father figure. Michael realizes that he made a mistake, pretends to discipline Erin like he's his daughter, creating a bonding moment between them as Erin never got to experience proper parenting. After the party, Michael tells Gabe that if he ever breaks Erin's heart, he will kill him. Meanwhile, Jim and Pam brought Cece, who won't stop crying the whole time. That is, until Dwight holds her, where she immediately stops crying as Dwight is a wizard with babies. Angela sees this and tells Dwight to meet her in her car, but Pam begs Dwight to stay since she hasn't slept in days. Dwight, realizing he can do whatever he wants, tells Jim to feed him like a baby, which is humiliating for Jim. Pam has to go tell Angela, who has been waiting for Dwight, that he's not coming. Angela is furious, especially after hearing Dwight didn't seem disappointed that he couldn't meet her. Remember Ryan? Well, in the episode of Woof.com, Ryan has come up with a cross-portal messaging system and has several people in the office invest in it. Michael and Ryan talk to Oscar, who asks them about their money situation, and Ryan reveals that they have 9 days left before they run out. Everybody who invested confronts Ryan, who doesn't have a plan for anything. They want their money back. When they find out Ryan's buyer only wants the initials for their own website, everyone demands to sell the system. However, Ryan and Michael refuse to sell.
Is it any particular branch of Washington University?
The Washington University Public Health Fund.
WUPHF.
Oh, God.
Pam confronts Michael, telling him that this special bond between him and Ryan isn't real. Ryan's trying to exploit him. The investors ambush Ryan, demanding to sell, but Michael comes over and says he doesn't want to cash out, believing Ryan can make a profit in 9 days, and only 9 days. After some hesitation, Ryan promises to not let everybody down. The episode ends with Ryan having no plan and deciding to sell the company, which comes as a relief to Michael. Meanwhile, Dwight holds a hay festival in the parking lot and crowns himself Hate King, something he never got to experience as a kid. Angela has been waiting all day to hook up with him and meet State Senator Robert Lipton. The two of them hit it off, and Robert asks to see Angela again. Dwight goes to the warehouse to find Angela, only to find the parenting contract has been voided. Christmas has come again in the episode Classy Christmas, and for once, there isn't any drama. That is until Toby mentions that he will be taking a leave of absence while he serves jury duty, so Holly will be taking his place. Michael immediately gets excited and cancels everything already planned for that day to make the place more classy for her. Holly arrives, and she and Michael pick things up as if she never left. Michael continues to flirt with Holly until she shows Michael a Woody doll that AJ got her. She confirms that they're still living together, and Michael becomes upset. However, Holly reveals to some of the ladies that if AJ doesn't propose by the end of the year, she's going to leave him. Michael doesn't know this, so when Holly isn't around, he puts her Woody in the trash and pours coffee on it. Wait, that's not cool. Holly finds her Woody in the trash and demands to know who did it. Michael blames Toby, but everybody by now knows the kind of person Michael is and immediately points the finger at him. Michael admits that he did do it, laughing it up like it was a prank. Holly doesn't think it's very funny. So Michael also admits that he did it out of jealousy. Holly tells her she's moved on. But Michael points out the irony that she is okay with a long-distance relationship with AJ, but not with him. AJ surprises Holly by showing up, and also surprisingly, Michael warmly welcomes him to the party.
You said, Michael, I love you, but I can't do this. But then, with this other guy, you don't have any problem with a long-distance relationship, do you?
Michael can't stand any more of this, so he dips out of the party early. But Pam catches him. Michael breaks down, saying he's not fine with Holly happy with somebody else. Pam then tells Michael about Holly's ultimatum, and it gives Michael a bit of hope that there's still a chance that he can be with Holly. Later, when Michael is giving Kelly her gift, AJ sees what happened to Woody, and Holly takes the blame, saying she accidentally spilled her salad on him. During the party, it's revealed that Angela and Robert are still together, and they both really like each other. By the way, from here on out, Angela will keep bragging about how she's dating a senator. It's going to get very annoying. However, Oscar is the only one who notices that Robert is secretly gay. Oy, this could be bad. While all this was taking place, Jim and Dwight were engaging in a snowball fight. However, Dwight took the word fight very literally, turned this Christmas into a brutal, tormenting paranoia for Jim. Later, when Jim and Pam are leaving, they're greeted to countless snowmen in the parking lot, like something out of a house of horrors. Jim starts attacking each snowman like a crazy person, thinking Dwight is in one of them. But Dwight is standing on the roof, looking down upon his mighty work. The next episode, Ultimatum, begins with Michael recording comforting videos of himself depending on whether or not Holly says yes or no when AJ proposes. Holly arrives, and Michael greets her, trying to see if there's a ring on her finger, and when she takes the mittens off, there's no ring. Michael plays the celebration video and parties with Erin in his office. Naturally, Michael goes to talk to Holly, but then she gets a call from AJ, and she talks to him like they're still dating. Confused, Michael seeks Pam for help. Phyllis overhears their conversation and volunteers to talk to her and inquire about their relationship status. Phyllis and Erin ask Holly what happened, and it turns out Holly felt bad giving AJ an ultimatum, so they're still together. Michael watches from the window and walks away depressed. Pam holds a meeting regarding New Year's resolutions, and Michael gets mad, saying it's impossible for people to stay committed to something. Of course, he's talking about his relationship with Holly, and after force-feeding Kevin a stick of broccoli, Holly walks out in tears. Michael tries to joke around with Holly at her desk, but she's nothing but cold to him. Realizing he went too far, he holds a meeting with Holly present where he apologizes to Kevin, inadvertently also apologizing to Holly. Kevin accepts his apology, and in a way, Holly does too. Michael tells the camera he promises to never make somebody he cares about cry again. As Holly leaves, she breaks up with AJ. The seminar opens with Michael bumping into his divine creator, David Brent, in one of the most legendary crossovers ever. David and Michael have such great chemistry together, it's almost like they're the same person. There's honestly nothing else important that happens in this episode, so let's just move on. The search opens with Ryan and Kelly telling everybody some important news. They're getting divorced. And if you're wondering when did they get married, so is everybody else. Turns out the divorce was just as spontaneous as their marriage that happened a week ago. To be honest, no one in the office cares about this, so let's move on to the rest of the episode. Michael keeps pressuring Holly to date him, certain that they're going to start dating eventually, but Holly doesn't want to fall into old patterns again. Michael then leaves with Jim for a sales call, and as they leave, Erin tells the camera that she doesn't like Holly, thinking she's overrated and is a terrible influence on Michael. Jim and Michael make the sales, but Michael really has to pee, so they pull over at a gas station. While Jim waits in the car, Helen calls him saying she accidentally locked Cece in the car. Jim bangs on the bathroom door, telling Michael he has to leave, but Jim does so in such a rush that Michael doesn't hear him, stranding Michael in the city. Jim calls Pam and lets her know he abandoned Michael, so Dwight, Erin, and Holly search for Michael starting at the gas station. When Michael is nowhere to be found, Dwight determines Michael walked back towards the office, but Holly determines Michael went the other way because of the bakery smell. The gas station attendant, played by an unknown Eugene Cordero, confirms that Holly's right, so they head that way.
Michael, this tall, black hair, Caucasian.
It's Michael!
Meanwhile, Michael wanders throughout the city into various shops and restaurants, and somehow, Holly's able to figure out exactly where Michael has gone because she thinks just like him. However, the trail runs cold and Holly can't figure out where Michael went, suggesting that they get somewhere high. Dwight doesn't think that's a good idea, so Holly goes off on her own with Erin following from a distance. She finds Michael on the roof, doing exactly what she would have done. Michael tells Holly that he missed her, and Holly admits that she did too. They kiss while Erin watches, happy for the both of them. It's Valentine's Day again in the episode PDA, and for once, Michael has a healthy relationship. So healthy that he and Holly can't stop keeping their hands on each other. In front of everybody. To the point where it gets uncomfortable. It gets so bad that Gabe holds a PDA meeting, which stands for Public Displays of Affection targeting Michael and Holly. Michael calls them all hypocrites, and Dwight reveals he's also done some pretty inappropriate things in the office. Michael still shows PDA towards Holly, but Holly's trying to take this seriously, prompting Michael to say that he loves her.
You are all hypocrites. You all do it.
Michael, confession. I have done PDA in the office.
Thank you.
Holly says she loves him too. Despite their best efforts to not touch each other, it makes things even more uncomfortable. So Gabe talks with them, suggesting they're acting this way because they want to have a full relationship before Toby gets back. Michael admits that this is true, because they broke up with each other on the drive to Nashua. So they decide to move in together, not wanting the company to decide their future. Meanwhile, Gabe has sent Erin on a Valentine's Day treasure hunt, but Erin isn't so good with puzzles, and recruits Andy to help her. The two of them get close during the search, and when they get the final clue, it mentions something about getting a kiss from her true love. Erin mistakes this as getting a kiss from Andy, but Andy points to behind her, revealing Gabe blowing her a kiss. Andy walks away, embarrassed. The next episode begins with somebody trying to murder Michael Scott. Or should I say, trying to murder Michael Scarn. Remember that script that everybody read that Pam found in Michael's office back in season 2? Well, Michael finally finished turning it into a movie. Now he's ready to unveil it in the episode Threat Level Midnight. Everybody sits down to watch this terribly written, terribly acted, terribly shot. It's basically your typical bad film, you know, the so bad it's good kind of film. Everybody in the office has a part, including characters that left several seasons ago.
More Tylenol.
I've already had 4. Oh, God.
Michael's really proud of the movie, but over time, it becomes increasingly difficult to not make fun of it, including Holly, so Michael ends the premiere prematurely. Michael confronts Holly about why she doesn't like the movie, and Holly tries to be supportive, saying that doing something with the people you love is more important than it being good. Michael calls her a pain in the ass and turns the movie back on for everybody else. Eventually, Michael realizes the movie actually is bad. She was right, so he apologizes to her and invites her to watch it with him. Everybody loves the movie, and Michael Scarn saves the day. Moving on to another episode that will change the course of the show, Garage Sale begins with everybody having a garage sale in the warehouse. Michael and Holly are trying to sell his neon sign, and Holly suggests that he keep it just in case things don't work out between them. This prompts Michael to make the biggest decision of his life. He calls Holly's parents in Colorado asking for her hand in marriage. Holly's parents call her saying Michael called them about something important, but they can't remember what because they're mentally disoriented. This worries Holly, and she tells Michael that she thinks that she should move back to Colorado and invites Michael to come with her. She then starts to propose, but Michael sprints out of there, not wanting their proposal to happen in the break room. Holly takes this the wrong way, thinking Michael doesn't feel the same way as she does. On the contrary, Michael's been spending the whole day trying to come up with the perfect way to propose, and after hearing some ideas, like how Jim proposed to Pam, he figures out the perfect way. He takes Holly by the hand, taking her down memory lane around the office, each moment special for the two of them, before taking her to her desk covered in romantic candles. Everyone eagerly watches as Michael asks the question, but before he does, the smoke from all the candles sets off the sprinkler system, which ironically makes the moment even better.
Marrying me, will you be?
Your wife, you dummy. Will I?
Michael proposes, and Holly says yes. Everyone congratulates the two of them, but the moment soon turns bittersweet as he drops this bombshell.
Wait, what? Holly has to go back to Colorado. I'm going with her. I'm leaving.
The next episode, Training Day, begins with Michael waiting to meet someone named D'Angelo Vickers at a hotel bar. While waiting, he strikes up a fun conversation with another man, played by Will Ferrell, who's also waiting to meet somebody at the bar. It takes them almost the entire episode to realize that they are here to meet each other. No wonder these two hit it off so well. Michael introduces D'Angelo to the office, and everybody wastes no time trying to make a good first impression. Everyone except Dwight, who's mad he wasn't considered for the manager position. D'Angelo starts making changes to the office, which starts to worry Michael, making him not like D'Angelo as he doesn't like the idea of somebody else being the boss. Knowing D'Angelo is a peanut allergy, Michael offers everybody peanut butter sandwiches, which upsets D'Angelo and he hides in the conference room. Everybody joins him, including Dwight, who found out Michael never sent his recommendation to corporate for the manager position. As Michael leaves, D'Angelo asks Michael for advice on how to run these meetings, and adds that this place is never going to be the same without him.
You are good. They know it. Come on. I just didn't expect you to get there so fast.
And I couldn't agree more. It's Michael's Last Dundies, and the episode aptly named Michael's Last Dundies. And Michael's determined to show D'Angelo how it's done since he'll be leaving soon. However, D'Angelo doesn't have any showman or performance skills, so Michael and everybody try to help D'Angelo learn how to be more funny. Meanwhile, Jim and Pam have to go to have lunch when they find Erin eating lunch in her car hiding. They confront her, and Erin reveals she's hiding from Gabe because she hates being around him all the time. Pam encourages Erin to be honest with Gabe and tell him how she really feels. The Dundies commence, but D'Angelo is nowhere to be found. Michael finds him throwing up in the bathroom, saying he can't do this. Michael gives him some motivation and a few slaps to the face, and that actually works. The show continues, and of course, the Dundies are just as offensive and funny as they've always been. When Erin receives the cutest redhead award, sorry Meredith, Erin, not feeling the magic of winning an award, breaks up with Gabe on stage.
Can I get a photo of the best mom and the best dad, please? Step on up.
I really gotta go do this.
Why?
Let's go. Big smiles, folks. There they are.
D'Angelo wins the Best Dundies Host Award and is encouraged to make a speech. D'Angelo puts on the Walkman first and yells really loud into the microphone, causing the restaurant staff to kick everybody out of the restaurant. Michael tells the camera that he's upset this is how his last Dundies ends. However, everybody agrees to go back to the office and finish them there. They finish the Dundies at the office, and Andy tells Michael that they have something they want to give him. Daryl plays his keyboard while everybody sings a song to the tune of Seasons of Love from Rent, recounting all the memories and things that Michael's done in the office.
9,986,000 minutes. That's how many minutes that you've worked here.
The great thing about this moment is Steve Carell didn't know that this was going to happen. This is really the cast telling him how much they're going to miss him. All those tears are completely real. And finally, we've arrived at Michael Scott's last episode titled Goodbye Michael. Michael has told everybody that he's leaving the next day, but he's actually leaving that very day at 4. So he spends his last day giving gifts to everybody, saying his farewells, and taking one last look around the place before he leaves for good.
They gave me this.
He even gets closure with Dwight, still mad at him for not recommending him, by giving him a letter of recommendation. Dwight is skeptical that Michael bothered to care, but Michael wrote how great of an employee Dwight is. Dwight realizes Michael does actually care, and invites him to play paintball in the parking lot. However, the longer he stays here saying goodbye, the harder it is for him to leave. As 4 approaches, Michael still can't find the strength to leave, calling one last conference room meeting. He stalls, trying to make the moment last longer, until Stanley asks, "Is that all?" Michael continues to stall, knowing what will happen if he says yes. Jim is the only one who realizes why Michael is stalling, and confronts him in his office. Jim tells Michael he wishes he didn't leave today, that he's been the greatest boss he's ever had. They both tear up. And yes, these are all real tears.
Best boss I ever had.
Michael takes one last look at the office, seeing his children hard at work, and he leaves. At the airport, Michael gives the camera crew back their microphone, heads to his gate. Suddenly, Pam shows up, who Michael wasn't able to say goodbye to all day, and they share unheard goodbyes as they hug. Pam watches from the gate window as Michael's plane takes off, telling the camera that he can't wait to get to Colorado and see Holly. Aw, yeah, that gets me every time. Moving on to D'Angelo's first day as the new boss in the episode The Inner Circle, where he's created a group of men from the office as his favorites who get special treatment from him, like paying for Daryl's night classes to learn business. Several of the women think D'Angelo is because there aren't any women in his inner circle. So Jim brings this up with D'Angelo, prompting him to inform the office that he's the furthest thing from sexist. He also hires a beautiful female assistant named Jordan with no business experience whatsoever, proving that he is not sexist. Jim also finds out that he's no longer a part of the inner circle and Andy took his spot. Jim decides to get back at D'Angelo, who's been bragging that he can do superhuman things like juggle and make free throw dunks by making him prove that he can do it. D'Angelo calls Jim's bluff and attempts the dunk and accidentally brings the whole net down on top of him. An ambulance takes him to the hospital and it's revealed that D'Angelo got brain damage and then fell into a coma. Wow, that got dark quick. Since it's a little hard to have an active manager who's in a coma, guess who gets to be manager? Acting manager of Dunder Mifflin. Well, as this next episode is aptly named Dwight K. Schrute, acting manager, it's actually Jim, who politely turns down the offer from Joe, allowing Dwight to take the spot. Dwight, as manager, creates a dictatorship where freedom is limited and work is encouraged, and has also made Jim's life a living nightmare. Dwight even tells Jim that he's fired, but Jim reminds Dwight that since he's technically acting manager, he can't fire anybody. So Dwight pre-fires Jim. Dwight gets a holster for his gun and walks around the office carrying it around his belt. Naturally, this makes everybody very uncomfortable, so Dwight tells them they're overreacting. They're proven right when Dwight almost shoots Andy in the foot. Everybody panics and wants to inform Joe what happened, especially since they can't look up Andy's symptoms online because Dwight put too many internet blocks.
Someone get me a banana. Sorry I freaked you guys out.
Dwight stops them from calling Joe and calls a conference meeting. Dwight tries to downplay the incident so he won't get in trouble and possibly lose his title, but everybody has been so fed up with how Dwight runs the office that they're all very against him. He then tries to bribe them to stay silent, leading to outlandish requests for Dwight to do. Joe arrives and Dwight can't take any more of the blackmail, so he tells Joe he fired a gun in the office. That is so crazy that he actually did that. Joe is obviously furious and demotes him. Jim comforts Dwight that while he was acting manager, all their orders went out on time more efficiently than anyone ever did as manager. Joe then creates a search committee composed of Toby, Jim, and Gabe to find a new manager. In the meantime, whoever's the most experienced in the office will be acting manager, which means Creed. Oh man, what have you done, Joe? The season 7 finale search committee, Jim, Gabe, and Toby interview people applying for the manager job because, let's face it, is Creed a good choice to lead anything? It's a lot of fun because there are a slew of cameos from people applying for the job like Will Arnett, Ray Romano, and Jim Carrey. Even David Brent tries to apply for the job. Darryl gets interviewed, but he underestimated the hiring process, thinking he would be evaluated on how well the search committee already knows him. Andy gets interviewed next, and the whole time Gabe keeps attacking Andy because of his relationship with Aaron, making the interview very hard. Regardless, Andy thinks he did a good job, and Aaron congratulates him.
How many windows are there in New York City? What? Critical thinking. Common on-the-spot question asked in an interview.
One man they interview is Robert California, played by James Spader, and his intimidating yet somehow genius personality wins over the search committee. Another person interviewed is the crass Nellie Bertram, who quote-unquote wows them with her unusual ideas on how to run an office. Later, she tells the camera that she's certain that she got the job. All this time, Dwight tries to get a second chance and be interviewed, but Joe won't let him because of, the fact that he fired a gun in the office. However, when she sees how determined he is to get this job by pretending to be a French burn victim, she tells Jim to give him one more chance, despite how crazy Dwight truly is. Jim refuses to interview Dwight, so Dwight interviews himself, and ironically, it impresses everybody, causing Jim to lose his mind. The office then has a long heated argument over who should be the new manager, until Jim says he's had enough and will recommend somebody to Joe and let her decide. Meanwhile, Angela gets engaged to the state senator, and shows off her enormous ring, gloating about how luxurious her new paparazzi lifestyle is. Oscar is still the only one who knows that Angela is marrying a gay man and is horrified, but maybe loving it a little bit. Oscar, along with Pam, who's also seen some things, investigate if he really is gay. But Ryan confirms it for them because Robert liked his Facebook photos at 3 in the morning. Eventually, the whole office knows except for Angela, but they decide to keep it a secret, no matter how tempting it is to ruin Angela's fantasy. Season 8, historically the worst season of all time, opens with the reveal of who got the manager job in the episode The List. It's Robert California, who took one look at the office and said, No. Then he drove all the way down to Florida and somehow convinced Jo to give him her job, and she did. So that meant the position for regional manager was still open, and Robert chose. Andy reveals that Dwight was mad about not getting the job, so he made Dwight his number 2, or as he calls it, his enforcer. Also, it's revealed that both Pam and Angela are pregnant now, and Angela constantly points out that even though she's pregnant, she's still slim, unlike Pam. What? Despite having an office in Florida, Robert will work out of the conference room sometimes and strike up intense small talks with random people. He will do this from time to time. Robert also sees certain people in the office as winners and losers. This creates a divide and tension at first, until Robert explains he sees this as a way for people to prove themselves.
And by the way, I am so glad I asked. People were just sort of, did you just move my name?
Might as well have been sketching a cube.
Andy, however, explains to Robert that he sees everybody in this office the exact same. They don't have to prove themselves because they've already done so. The episode Lotto begins with all the warehouse guys quitting their jobs because they all won the lottery. All of them except for Daryl, because he's technically not a warehouse guy anymore. Daryl now has to hire a new warehouse crew, but he doesn't have the motivation to get any work done because he didn't win the lottery, and he also is still pretty angry that Andy got chosen to be manager and not him. Andy confronts Daryl, telling him that ever since Jo saw something special in him, he stopped pushing himself to maintain that excellence. He needs to stop blaming other people and look in the mirror. Daryl realizes that Andy is right, and vows to make it to the top not by winning the lottery, but by earning it. You go, Daryl, it's awesome. In Pam's replacement, Pam is training a new temp, Kathy Sims, to take her position while she's on maternity leave. When Ryan comes over asking if Kathy's single, Jim immediately says he doubts it. This makes Pam suspicious, thinking Jim might be in love with Kathy. Dwight, being the only one honest with her in the office, agrees to assist in helping her prove if Jim finds Kathy attractive through a series of tests. Each test result comes back negative. Pam finally confronts Jim on whether or not he thinks Kathy's attractive, and Jim doesn't like that Pam won't believe him.
Oh, that line from Zoolander? It was from a deleted scene, so we were both right.
Told you. But agrees to prove himself by a pharmacy blood pressure tester as a lie detector. Dwight asks a series of questions, including if he thinks Kathy's attractive. Turns out, Jim's been lying. It also turns out that Jim has lied about all the questions, including his name, meaning Jim has high blood pressure. Therefore, the tests are inconclusive. Pam finally believes Jim. It's Andy's turn to run an office Christmas special in the episode Christmas Wishes. Andy's told everybody that if they have a Christmas wish, he will make it come true. And he's a man of his word. Andy also tells everybody that his new girlfriend Jessica will be coming by. Erin tells the camera that she's totally happy for Andy and Jessica, saying she loves Jessica already. Jessica arrives and Erin is super friendly with her. But it's clear she doesn't like seeing Jessica and Andy together. Erin gets super drunk, courtesy of Robert encouraging her to drink, and Andy tries to get her to stop. Erin tells Andy that her Christmas wish is for Jessica to be dead, and wants Andy to make her wish come true like he promised. Andy refuses, and Erin keeps drinking.
I wish she was in a graveyard, under the ground, with worms coming out of her mouth.
Finally, after having too much to drink, Robert takes Erin home. Andy sees this as Robert trying to take advantage of a drunk Erin and follows them home along with a drunk Meredith. Turns out, Robert, who knows what it's like to lose somebody you love, was just trying to take care of her. In the episode Pool Party, Robert is forced to sell his mansion at the behest of his recent divorce, and Kevin gives him the bright idea to have a pool party, or one last hurrah, before he sells it. Robert likes the idea and invites everybody from the office. Andy reveals to the camera that he plans to propose to Jessica with his family ring. Before everybody leaves for the party, Meredith tells Erin that Andy followed her and Robert home, which makes Erin happy knowing that Andy still cares about her. During the party, Erin tries to make Andy jealous by flirting with Dwight, but Andy loses the ring and is more focused on trying to find it. After almost dying during some chicken fighting, Dwight tells Andy that he wants to have a very intimate relationship with Erin, and Andy says he's done with Erin. Dwight, pretending to be with Erin, tells Andy he's an idiot. Later, Erin finds the ring at the bottom of the pool and gives it back to Andy. Andy confesses to her that he was going to propose tonight, but he honestly doesn't know anymore. The episode Jury Duty begins with some exciting news. Angela had her baby boy named Philip. Oscar, Kevin, Erin, and Gabe go to visit Angela at the hospital, but before they enter Angela's room, Oscar urges them to not say anything about the baby being small because it was born prematurely. However, upon entering, they find the baby is actually huge. Angela finally admits that Philip was conceived 9 months ago, before she and Robert were married.
Philip is so fat. Kevin. You warned me not to say anything if it was tiny, Oscar.
She begs them not to tell anybody, but Oscar tells Dwight the secret, which makes Dwight believe the baby might be his. Dwight sees the baby and sees that his face looks just like his. Dwight tells Angela the baby is his, reminding her that they were together a month before the wedding because Robert wasn't satisfying her. Angela denies it, saying it's a coincidence, but Dwight vows to prove that he is the father. The next episode's special project is the first episode in a 6-episode arc where Dwight and 5 other employees will be traveling to Florida to help Sabre launch a chain of retail stores. Also, Pam is back from maternity leave. She also had a boy named Philip. Dwight assembles a strong team consisting of Daryl, Phyllis, Toby, Angela, and Oscar, but Andy is against the list because everyone Dwight chose is essential. Andy lets Dwight have Daryl and Phyllis, but instead have Kathy, Kelly, and Kevin. Dwight announces the new list, creating signs in the office, as others believe they deserve to go to Florida for a paid vacation. Andy then tells everybody to come up with a list of reasons why they feel they deserve to go, and they will decide from this. Everybody makes their case to Andy and Dwight. Some put in more work than others. Jim is the only one who asked to not go because he has to help Pam take care of Cece and Philip. However, Robert keeps texting Jim certain he's already coming, so Andy and Dwight have no choice but to put Jim on the team. They finally announce who's on the team, and it's Kathy, Stanley, Ryan, Aaron, and Jim. And of course, Dwight is very happy with these choices. While Dwight conducts meetings for their assignment, Aaron reveals to the camera that she's going to Florida. She's not coming back. Also, it's revealed that Kathy will be trying to seduce Jim during the trip because there's nothing else to do. What? It's the first day in Florida in the episode Tallahassee, and Dwight wants to prove he has leadership material by making sure he gives a great first impression to the president of Saber's special projects. During the orientation meeting, it's revealed that Packer now has a job with Saber after Jim and Dwight tried to get him fired last season, which causes some tension between them. Speaking of familiar faces, turns out the president is Nellie from the search committee interviews, and she's bringing even more crass to the job. Fun fact, Nellie was the showrunner's first choice to be regional manager, but they went with Robert California because Catherine Tate had a very busy schedule. So instead, they brought her back for this season. Personally, I think she would have been perfect as Dunder Mifflin's boss. Nellie explains that after getting rejected for Scranton's job, she called Joe, whom she was already good friends with after going on a destructive shopping spree. Came up with the idea to create a store that rivals Apple's chain. During all of this, Dwight has been taking countless antacids due to some stomach pain and blames Jim for poisoning him. Turns out Dwight has appendicitis and needs treatment immediately.
What kind of poison did you use? Dwight, I didn't poison you. I was kidding.
But he stays despite the pain after finding out Nellie needs somebody to impress her for the vice president position. It's worth noting, Packer's very interested in this position too. Eventually, the pain becomes too great and Dwight has to be taken to the hospital. But this doesn't stop him. Dwight returns 3 hours after surgery, still attached to his IV bag, and butchers the presentation he wasn't here to prepare for. However, Nellie still invites him and Packer to have breakfast with him, and is proud knowing that he's still a candidate. While Packer and Dwight continue to impress and seduce Nellie in the episode After Hours, Jim must deal with a seductive Kathy. Kathy asks Jim if she can stay in his hotel room because the heating is out, and Jim, being a nice guy, lets her, but he quickly realizes this is a mistake. The whole time, Kathy tries to seduce him by taking a shower, laughing at whatever he says, trying to get Jim to feel her legs. Jim has finally had enough. Tells Kathy he's married, but Kathy pretends to deny anything she was doing was flirty. What is this storyline? Jim gives her the benefit of the doubt, but Kathy resumes her seduction techniques. Out of options, Jim tries to fumigate her out by having Dwight inspect the bed for bed bugs, or in this case, one very large bed bug. It works. Kathy leaves. But Dwight tells Jim it's not safe for him to sleep in his room, so Jim bunks with Dwight, since the other option was bunking with Kathy. Fun fact, originally Jim was supposed to have an affair with Kathy, but the actors that played Jim and Pam completely protested against this, so they changed it. I'm really glad the showrunners listened to them. I mean, it would be a major murder of character. It's the test launch day for their first Saber store in the episode Test the Store, and Dwight is in charge of everything, including promoting the new Saber pyramids. The store is going to be swarming with bloggers, so their job is to make sure they post good reviews, which isn't the easiest task when the screen is a literal triangle. Can you imagine trying to watch a video on that? Jim gets caught using his cell phone and not using his new Arrowhead phone, gets chewed out by Dwight and Nellie before being demoted to a sign twirler. Ryan is tasked with giving a presentation at the end, but he has a panic attack. Can't do it. With the bloggers getting impatient, Dwight is left with no choice but to make Jim do the presentation, begging him to not screw it up because he really wants the VP position. Jim gives a Steve Jobs level presentation that was clearly meant for Ryan to give and saves the day.
Saber, it's time to come home.
Nellie is very impressed with Dwight's initiative and gives him the VP position, but this also means Dwight will be leaving Scranton. Meanwhile, Aaron befriends an old lady named Irene, whom Dwight kicked out because old people don't attract customers. Aaron opens up about her breakup with Andy, and Irene encourages Aaron to forget him. Pretty solid advice if you ask me. Dwight gloats in his power in the episode Last Day in Florida, and Jim couldn't be happier knowing he'll never see Dwight again. However, Robert reveals to Jim that he's always hated the idea of a Saber store due to their terrible products and plans to sandbag it, resulting in Dwight getting fired. Well, you win some, you lose some, I guess. Jim tries to warn Dwight, but Dwight is too obsessed with his new power, so he insults Jim. So Jim says screw it and leaves Dwight to his fate. But on the way to the airport, Pam tells Jim that he has to save Dwight, despite how much he hates him. Jim finally tells Dwight he's going to get fired, but Dwight doesn't believe him, thinking it's another prank, leaving Jim with no other choice. While Jim delays Dwight, Packer makes his move and convinces Nellie to give him the VP position instead. Dwight defeats Jim and enters the meeting right as Robert fires Packer, proving Jim was right. Dwight silently helps Jim up. They go back to Scranton, where they belong. Meanwhile, Erin tells Andy that she's staying in Florida and now has a job helping Irene, which upsets Andy. Upon seeing Jim return and kiss Pam, Andy decides to go to Florida and bring Erin back, which leads us to the episode Get the Girl. It opens with a surprise. Robert has asked Nellie to join the Scranton branch, even after the failure with the store. She makes herself comfortable in Andy's office because Andy isn't there. Robert tries to kick her out, but she makes the logical claim that since the manager, Andy, hasn't come to kick her out, why should she move? Remember when I said Nellie was originally going to be the new manager instead of Andy? Yeah, speaking of which, Andy has made it to Florida and begs her to come back, saying he loves her. Erin tells Andy that she's not coming back. Andy argues that him getting in a car and driving down until he found Erin is proof that he wants to be with her, but Erin doesn't buy this. Erin brings up all the times Andy broke her heart and argues they're just not meant to be. Andy admits she's right, saying he's sorry they didn't love each other at the same time. Irene, who's been against Andy coming down here, suddenly tells Erin that she should go back with Andy, knowing that Erin still does like Andy, who risked his job to bring her back.
Andy, wait! Andy, don't go! Andy, I love you! Stop! Oh, this is the wrong Prius. I don't love you.
Erin catches Andy, saying she loves him, and they kiss in the middle of the intersection. Andy and Erin make it back to Scranton in the episode Angry Andy, only to find Nellie still in his manager chair and no longer having a job. Andy confronts Nellie into giving his job back, but Nellie refuses. Robert tells Andy that his decision to drive all the way down to Florida and tell Erin how he truly felt was dumb because he could have easily done it electronically. Yeah, I guess he does have a point. Andy apologizes for what he did and promises it won't happen again, adding that he always does what he says. Robert is convinced and tells Nellie to give Andy his job back, but Nellie refuses again, not at all trying to seduce Robert to win the job. Andy gets really depressed that he didn't get his job back, so much so that he's unable to, let's just say, perform for Erin during their date. Nellie finds out from Dwight, who finds out from Erin about Andy's problem and feels really bad for him. Nellie has a conference meeting about impotence, and Andy admits the meeting was about him. This prompts everybody to come forward who has experienced some sort of impotence in their life, and this is totally not weird at all. All this makes Andy, thanks to Erin, unleash the anger that he's been controlling ever since he punched a hole in the wall, resulting in punching another hole in the same wall.
Why don't you take a seat, idiot?
Why don't you jiggle your stupid memos and your stupid pen?
Anyway, after calming down, Robert tells Andy that Nellie is going to remain manager and puts Andy back on sales. Andy refuses, telling Robert no, which is something he's not used to. Robert and Nellie try to compromise, but Andy says no. So Andy's fired, which also fixes his bedroom problem. So that's a win, I guess. Meanwhile, Jim and Pam introduce Kelly to their pediatrician, Ravi, and the two of them hit it off. This makes Ryan want to get back with Kelly, but no one takes him seriously. So Ryan dresses like an Indian prince on a noble steed and professes his love to Kelly while Pam justifiably boos. Kelly appreciates the gesture, but tells him she loves Ravi instead, hoping they can still be friends. In the next episode, Fundraiser, Robert Lipton is hosting a fundraiser and invites everybody in the office. Andy crashes it as Erin's date. Still not over getting fired from Dunder Mifflin and eventually finds himself all alone. This is when he runs into somebody that we never thought we'd see again, David Wallace. Turns out David is now a multimillionaire from selling Suck It to the military and encourages Andy that the same could happen to him since he's now fired. Meanwhile, Oscar and Robert strike up a conversation and Robert gives Oscar not his work phone number, but his personal cell, telling him to call after hours whenever. Oscar is now convinced more than ever that Angela's husband is gay. The penultimate episode of Season 8, Turf War, begins with Robert closing the Binghamton branch as part of him finalizing his recent divorce. This allows Jim and Dwight to steal all their clients, which causes one of the Syracuse branch's employees, Harry Janarin, to visit Scranton and berate them for violating state lines. Harry confronts Robert, where Andy overhears Harry saying there's another big client, Prestige Direct Mail Solutions, that is still up for grabs. Robert urges Harry and Dwight to stay away from the client, but Andy sees this as a chance to get his manager job back. Andy meets with the client's CEO and impresses him with his dedication right before Jim, Dwight, and Harry race themselves over. Andy calls Robert, reminding of when he put Andy on his losers list and telling him that he just acquired his biggest client. If Robert wants it back, he's going to have to hire Andy. If not, then Andy will take it to somebody else. Robert then rants about how much better he is than Andy and refuses to take him back. Andy then casually walks up to David Wallace's house, offering him Dunder Mifflin, greatly piquing David's interest. The Season 8 finale, called Free Family Portrait Studio, begins with Andy stumbling into the office wearing tattered clothes and reeking of alcohol. He falls on his knees, begging Nellie for a job, and she eventually caves and makes him the janitor for the day. He woefully thanks her, but reveals to the camera that this is all part of the plan. See, Andy convinced David to buy back Dunder Mifflin from Sabre, and later that day, he's going to reinstate Andy as manager, making Andy's rise from janitor to manager the fastest in history. However, he gets a phone call from David saying he won't be able to come in until next week. Unable to have his delicious moment, Andy tells everybody he convinced David Wallace to give him his old job back. Of course, everybody thinks Andy's hallucinating. I mean, look at this guy. Luckily, David does come and gives Andy his old job back. However, everybody's more focused on what David has to say than Andy's revenge. David informs everybody that Joe is planning on liquidating the rest of Sabre, which ironically excites Robert California. Andy demotes Nellie as manager, despite her best attempts to win him over with Shakespeare, and lets her stay on as a special projects manager. David takes over as CEO, letting Robert go. Robert bids farewell to everybody and kisses Andy goodbye, saying that it's been a great year. Meanwhile, Dwight has been throwing a portrait studio in the office for employees to take their family pictures for free. Nothing devious about this, right? Well, naturally, Robert Lipton shows up with baby Philip and Angela, starts freaking out because she's certain Dwight instigated this whole thing just to prove that he's the father. During the shoot, Dwight keeps trying to get samples of Philip's DNA through hair follicles, fingernail clippings, and skin flakes, but Angela stops him every time. That is until Philip poops his diaper. A car chase ensues, and Angela manages to trap Dwight in a cul-de-sac, only to realize that she's been chasing Mose pretending to be Dwight.
No! Dwight! Give me the diaper!
She eventually finds the real Dwight already waiting in a hospital, planning on waiting the 72 hours for the DNA test results. Angela sits with him and they start making out passionately. Their relationship is so wild, and I just don't know if I care anymore. Back at the office, Robert Lipton runs into Oscar, wondering why he never called him. Before Oscar can explain, Robert makes his interest in Oscar pretty obvious. As he walks away, Oscar's face says it all. He's pretty tempted. But we finally made it to the final season. Congrats on making it this far. Starting out with the first episode, The New Guys. Dwight had spent the summer concocting a new energy drink made from beet runoff, gross, and also learned that he's not the father. Andy has promoted Daryl to assistant regional manager and still resents Nellie for taking his job. Kelly married Ravi and moved to Ohio. And Ryan also moved to Ohio for unrelated reasons. Wow. Replacing them are two new guys, Clark Green and Pete Miller.
Actually, Andy, we call this one Dwight Jr.
No, I prefer Fart.
No, Dwight Jr.
Jim and Pam reveal that an old college friend of Jim's finally started a company he and Jim came up with years ago and invited Jim to join him. Jim turned down the offer because it was in Philly, and he's a family here that he wants to take care of. Jim and Pam's interview finishes. For the first time, we see Pam ask the camera guys why they're still filming them after 9 years. Surely, they should have plenty of footage by now. The camera guy off-screen admits they care more about their stories developing than the office itself. Pam remarks that their life is going to be nothing but boring from here on out, leaving Jim deep in thought, as if regretting something. The episode ends with Jim, without telling Pam, making a phone call to his college friend, saying that he's in. Remember Roy? Who am I kidding? How could we forget? In the episode Roy's Wedding, Jim and Pam are invited to his wedding and discover that Roy is a completely different person. Got a nice home, better lifestyle, and a successful gravel company. He's also grateful that Jim ruined his relationship with Pam, otherwise he never would have grown into a better man and met his wife Laura. Roy surprises Jim and Pam more when he reveals he can sing and he now knows piano. This makes Jim and Pam question their own relationship, trying to find new things the other doesn't know about them. While they play a game, quizzing themselves on how much they know each other, Jim gets a call from his college friend about the new company. Pam begins to suspect Jim is lying to her about something. Pam confronts Jim about his secrecy, but Jim still pretends he has no more secrets. This doesn't sit well with Pam. Meanwhile, Pete shows signs of attraction towards Erin, and when Clark tries to make a move, first by getting her to audition for a fake newscaster job, Pete gets to spend some alone time with her getting dinner. In Andy's ancestry, Nellie, who's been at the mercy of Andy's revenge, tricks Andy into believing he's related to Michelle Obama. This creates some tension between him and everybody else, including Daryl, because it means Andy's family owns slaves. Andy verifies this information with his family and instead discovers that his family didn't own slaves, but he did transport them. Throughout the episode, Daryl has been trying to pitch ideas to Andy that will increase productivity, but Andy is more preoccupied with trying to make his ancestry more positive. Constantly being ignored, Daryl finally has enough and disappears to the warehouse where Jim finds him. Daryl tells Jim that he can't stay here the rest of his life, which prompts Jim to reveal his sporting marketing job in Philly, offering Daryl a position. Daryl's very interested, asking how Pam feels about it. Jim reveals he hasn't told her yet, and Daryl strongly urges Jim to tell her, adding this opportunity isn't real unless she's also on board. Jim finally tells Pam the big secret, and surprisingly, Pam isn't mad. Instead, she's very happy for her husband. However, Pam tells the camera that she's hurt that Jim didn't tell her. And it's a pretty big secret to keep from your partner. In the last Halloween episode, called Here Comes Trouble, Jim doesn't dress up because he's meeting with a couple investors for the sports marketing job. During the meeting, Jim gets pressured into offering $10,000, which is more than he and Pam agreed to. Jim tells Pam how much he gave. She's furious. They have a heated argument while the a cappella group from Cornell, Here Comes Treble, sings over it. Pam reminds Jim that the money could have been used for something more important like feeding his children. After the Halloween party, Oscar and Robert are seen making out behind the warehouse. Oscar leaves and freaks out when he sees the camera crew caught everything in 4K. The episode The Boat begins with Oscar pulling the camera crew aside, asking them to keep what he and Robert did a secret. Little did he know, the one person who can't keep a secret was hearing everything Oscar was saying. Oscar pleads with Kevin to keep his affair with the senator a secret, and Kevin ambiguously agrees to keep it a secret, but this is Kevin we're talking about. Oscar spends the rest of the episode trying to prevent Kevin from accidentally telling Angela. Meanwhile, Andy finds out that his family is now broke after his dad took all their money and fled to Argentina with another woman. In order to support his mom, he sells all of his family heirlooms except the family boat because his dad never let him sail it when he was growing up. Aaron encourages them to drive all the way up to Stamford and take the boat for one last sunset cruise, and Andy loves this idea. They make it up there, but the broker is already there getting ready to sell the boat to the buyer in the Bahamas.
Damn it, screw you, Dad!
Aaron comforts Andy, saying he doesn't need to sail a boat to prove that he's a man. But Andy is still eager to sail the boat no matter what. Suddenly, Andy finds his brother Walter, played by Josh Groban, hiding and drunk in the liquor closet. Andy is happy that he's here and asks him to sail with him to the Bahamas. Andy then sails without Aaron, although she says she wishes Andy had asked her to go. Aaron returns to the office and finds Pete covering her job while she helped Andy. Pete then asks Aaron out for drinks with his friends. She accepts. At least there's somebody who wants to spend some time with her. Moving on to The Whale, where David tasks Dwight with hunting down a whale of a client, the Scranton White Pages. However, it turns out the CEO is a woman, and every woman in the office urges Dwight to get somebody else to do it. But Dwight argues David chose him for a reason. The women try to coach Dwight on how to sell to a woman, but Dwight fails every lesson. So Pam goes with him. They wait in the CEO's office, and Dwight is more than certain that he can handle her, until he sees who it is. Jan is upset David wasn't here in person, yelling at her assistant Molly, revealing she called this meeting as a ruse. Dwight leaves and returns with Clark, knowing Jan is a thing for young assistants like her supposed affair with her assistant Hunter, and accepts David's offer. On the way out, Dwight is sympathetic to Molly, and Pam is proud of Dwight for finally understanding how to act around women. Meanwhile, Angela comes to Oscar with some troubling news regarding her husband, the senator. She's convinced that he's having an affair. Oscar panics, thinking the affair is about him and the senator, but Angela reveals it's with Robert's yoga instructor, Blake. Oscar volunteers to help Angela find out if he really is cheating on her. They spy on Robert and see him training with a woman, immediately thinking Blake is a woman. But then a man enters and kisses the woman, quelling Angela's certainty that Robert is cheating on her, completely missing the man getting way too friendly with Robert, most likely the real Blake. Oscar, now more concerned Robert is cheating on him, tries to get Angela to realize Robert is gay, but Angela suspects Oscar is hiding something else. Robert finishes his yoga class and calls Oscar, not knowing that he's close by. Oscar's phone goes off, and Angela ambiguously puts two and two together. Back at the office, Jim has been trying to talk with some investors about the sports marketing job, but all the noise and distractions have been making it hard for him to have a simple conversation. The investors call Jim to say that this isn't working out because he clearly can't be a team player from where he is now. Moving on to The Target, where Jim prepares for a meeting with David so he can ask to work part-time at Dunder Mifflin and the sports marketing company Athlete. David tells Jim that he really needs Jim in the office at all times in case there's a crisis, and Jim, quick thinking, tells David that Phyllis and Stanley have agreed to cover for him. Both of them are completely against the idea until Jim treats them to free lunch. Phyllis and Stanley end up ordering a lot of food and wine. They agree to cover for Jim, who wouldn't fall for an incentive like that, come on. As you might have guessed, Angela thinks Oscar is having an affair with Robert and confers with Dwight in the warehouse where they used to meet. Dwight calls in a friend of his named Trevor, and Angela reveals she wants somebody murdered. Yikes, calm down, Angela. Dwight is immediately against it, and they compromise to breaking the target's kneecaps as Angela wants the person to suffer. Dwight figures out that the target is Oscar and confronts Angela about it.
And it's settled. One kneecapping. Now the hit goes down at 4 o'clock. Keep in mind, once I leave, there's no turning back.
Angela tells Dwight that Oscar deserves to suffer, believing he turned Robert gay. Dwight tries to talk Angela out of it, but they turn around and see Trevor's van in the parking lot. Dwight rescues Oscar just as Trevor shows up concealing a lead pipe in a sandwich. Angela catches him, telling him to leave. Dwight tells Oscar that they know he's sleeping with Robert, but Oscar plays innocent. They keep running and run straight into Trevor, ready to attack. Luckily, Oscar manages to disarm Trevor, and the inept hitman runs off. Oscar is furious at Angela for what she did, but Angela argues Oscar shouldn't have had an affair with her husband. Oscar apologizes and tries to convince Angela that he didn't turn Robert gay, because he already was. But Angela refuses to believe this. Angela then kicks Oscar in the shin and storms off, adding that they were supposed to be friends. Dwight comforts Angela, telling her it's gonna be okay. Remember how I said there's no Christmas episode for season 4? Well, we see a taste of what it was going to be in the final Christmas episode, Dwight Christmas. With Andy gone, no one told the party planning committee to prepare a themed Christmas party, so Dwight introduces everybody to a Schrute, Pennsylvania Dutch Christmas, where instead of Santa Claus, they're greeted to Belsnickel. Whoa, that is slightly terrifying. During the party, Daryl reminds Jim that he promised to take him with him to Philly to interview at Athlete, and Jim doesn't mention if he told his friends or not to expect him. This makes Daryl get too drunk on the Glow wine, thinking Jim never referred him to the company.
What else could you possibly be forgetting? Things, people.
He finally confronts Jim, ready to fight, but then Jim tells Daryl that he's arranged an interview. Daryl immediately calms down and thanks Jim, before the booze take over. Meanwhile, Pete and Aaron get close when Pete nerds out over Aaron never having seen Die Hard, and Pete proves he can recite the entire film word for word, during which Aaron gets an email from Andy saying that he arrived safely, but is going to be staying there for a few more weeks. This upsets Aaron, and invites Pete to watch the actual movie with her. When they get to the part where McClane jumps off the building, Aaron asks Pete if Andy would do the same thing for her. Pete replies yes, and Aaron starts to cry, knowing that he's lying. Suit Warehouse opens with Jim now working part-time at Athlete, and Daryl on his way for an interview with them. Before leaving, Daryl invites Pam to go with him so she can see Jim, and Pam immediately says yes, especially since Andy isn't at the office. Daryl and Pam arrive in Philly, and Jim is surprised to see Pam. Sadly, he's unable to spend much time with her because he has to work, completely upsetting her.
Well, that's funny because I think of him as working part-time in Philadelphia.
We can't wait till you move here.
Daryl attends the interview, but he's so nervous, feeling he's so underqualified for the position because he's a warehouse worker. The interviewees open up about their crummy jobs before getting here, emphasizing they're just like him. Daryl regains his confidence and nails the interview with a three-pointer. Thankfully, accidentally electrocuting their fish didn't destroy his chances of getting the job. Moving on to the next episode, Customer Loyalty. Jim is unable to attend Cece's ballet recital like he promised, so he can land an important client. He tells Pam to record the recital so he can watch it later, but Pam fears this job is keeping Jim away from his family. During the recital, Pam gets a phone call while she's recording and later finds out she forgot to hit record again after hanging up. Jim calls Pam that night, upset about losing the client, but adds that he's going to have to stay longer in Philly and work twice as hard to make up for lost funds. He then asks to see Cece's ballet recital, and Pam confesses that she wasn't able to get it, so she can send someone else's recording of it. Jim is furious Pam couldn't do this one simple thing, saying he's missed out on this moment forever. Pam argues that Jim should have been here instead of Philly, and Jim scolds her for suggesting he's not a good a father or husband, adding that they agreed to this. Jim vilifies Pam, telling her to back off because he's sacrificing more than her for their family. The argument ends with Pam in tears, turning to the camera crew for support. Brian, the boom operator, enters the shot and comforts Pam. It's clear these two have been close friends throughout the past 9 years. Throughout the season, Pam has been painting a mural in the warehouse, and in the episode Vandalism, somebody defaces all her hard work with pictures of butts. Pam tries to figure out who did it, but nobody comes forward. And with Jim and Philly, Pam feels all alone trying to fix it. Well, not totally alone. Pam calls a conference meeting telling everybody about the mural, but no one shares Pam's pain over the vandalism. However, Dwight volunteers to help Pam because if there's one thing Dwight hates more than art, it's crime. Nellie also joins because she's bored. They interrogate Nate and identify Frank, another warehouse worker, as the one responsible for the vandalism. They then interrogate Frank, asking why he did it, but Frank just insults Pam's artwork and storms out without apologizing. Realizing the civil approach didn't work with Nellie, Pam turns to Dwight to exact sweet revenge on Frank. So they vandalize Frank's beloved truck with a bunch of disgusting images. Afterwards, Pam tells the camera that she's satisfied with how she got back at Frank, saying not to worry, because the paint is washable. Suddenly, Frank shows up, furious at Pam, and charges at her, prompting Brian to spring into action off camera and hit Frank with his boom mic. The rest of the film crew intervenes as Pam rushes to safety. Brian, and also Frank, get fired, and Pam blames herself for what happened. Brian says it's okay, and tells her that if he ever needs her, he'll be there. Who knew there was always such a good guy just out of the camera shot? Valentine's Day has arrived, and Andy finally returns in the episode Couples Discount. Everybody in the office has loved Andy being gone, and so they decide to have one last hurrah before he comes back by pairing up and pretending to be a couple so that they can get a couple's discount at a nail salon. Erin tells the camera that she plans to break up with Andy when he comes back. But she's terrible with breakups, so this might not go very well. They return to the office and find Andy patiently waiting for them, not having washed or shaved since he left. Seriously, you can smell him through the screen. He's very happy to see Erin, but Erin isn't very happy to see him, trying to avoid physical contact.
I mean, I came back early to surprise Erin. Happy Valentine's Day, sweetheart. But I'm just saying, I'm also excited about the Wallace meeting.
David visits the office and congratulates a now showered and shaven Andy on their record-breaking sales, which he didn't actually contribute to, which makes everybody else who worked super hard super angry. Andy begs them not to tell him all that's happened since he's been gone, so instead, everybody tells him lies trying to make Andy look bad. It doesn't work, and Andy's furious with the office for tricking him. Erin tries to break up with Andy, saying she's mad he left him, hardly talked to him, and that she doesn't love him anymore. Andy tries to convince her that there's still love there, adding that she should fake the love until she falls for him again. Talk about desperate. Erin tells Pete she couldn't break up with Andy, and Pete says it's okay, saying he just wants her to be happy. She kisses Pete and runs back upstairs to tell Andy that they're breaking up, adding that she was worried Andy was dead when he was gone for 3 months. Meanwhile, Jim and Pam are having lunch with Brian and his wife Alyssa as a thank you for Brian saving Pam. Upon getting there, they discover that Alyssa isn't there because she and Brian are splitting up. Brian talks about his breakup and starts crying, making a joke that he and Pam need to spend less time together in tears. Jim is confused and Pam tells Jim about when Brian comforted her after their argument over the phone. Jim is angry that she didn't tell him, and Pam explains she didn't want to add more stress to his life, which only makes him angrier. At the end of the day, Jim tells Pam they should cancel their Valentine's Day plans because they'll probably end up fighting the whole time. He leaves for Philly, but Pam stops him, saying she'd rather fight with him than do nothing without him. So Jim stays. The episode Moving On opens with David scolding Andy for lying to him and going away for 3 months. Andy tries to apologize, but David tells Andy he isn't going to fire him because without him, he wouldn't own the company. They can't say David isn't loyal. He does make a point of letting Andy know that they are now even, that he's on very thin ice. Andy finds out that Pete and Erin have been dating and tries to fire Pete, but Toby informs Andy that he can't fire people, since Pete and Erin already disclosed their relationship. Unable to move on, Andy hires Pete's ex-lover Alice and Erin's ex-lover, who can only be one person. Andy holds a conference room with all the ex-lovers, opening old wounds between them, causing everybody to argue with each other. Seeing everyone get angry helps Andy move on, so I guess the plan worked. Meanwhile, Angela helps Dwight take care of his Aunt Shirley and proves she could be a great wife for Dwight. They kiss as she leaves, but Angela stops Dwight because she's with Robert now and can't leave him, despite how much she wants to be with Dwight. Dwight admires her commitment, saying he would want the same from her if she was his wife. The episode ends with Oscar leaving his computer while he does upside-down sit-ups, missing the reveal that a documentary called The Office, an American Workplace, is going to air. Yeah, the end is nigh, guys. We're almost there. In the episode Promos, everybody in the office has seen a couple promos of their documentary and are excited by all the buzz that it's generating. That is, until they see that the camera crew were filming intimate and private stuff, like Angela's affair with Dwight, without them knowing about it. This makes them wonder how much was recorded and the secrets that could ruin so many lives and relationships.
Wait, so they were filming all the time even when we didn't know it? Oh my god.
They urge Pam to talk to Brian and find out what he knows. Pam visits Brian with the camera crew secretly watching and asks him how much footage was recorded without them knowing. Brian reveals that they recorded everything, even when their microphones were off. Pam and everybody feel violated that they had no privacy for 10 years. Meanwhile, Angela and Oscar realize the documentary will reveal that Robert is gay, and that he cheated on him with Dwight, and try to warn him via voicemail. Hopefully, no one's life is ruined in the next episode, but after what we've all seen throughout this video, that's a pretty high likelihood. The reviews for the documentary are out in the episode Staremageddon. They don't describe every person in the office in the most positive light. This makes Andy realize his days at Dunder Mifflin are almost up, and decide to pursue his dreams of stardom, somehow landing a talent agent. Buzz is generated regarding Robert's affair with Oscar, and his campaign has been experiencing a lot of drama since the documentary went out. Robert urges Angela to be the good wife in this relationship, which she assumes means to deny the affair and go back to the way that things were. Robert holds a live press conference with Angela by his side where he surprisingly comes out as gay on TV, also admitting that he's in love with his chief of staff. Robert adds that it was being with Angela that made him realize that he was gay, and that it was Oscar who gave him the confidence to discover who he was. Wow, poor Angela. He literally just said that she turned him gay. On the bright side, Kevin is happy he doesn't have to keep the secret anymore. Pam reveals to Nellie that she and Jim are getting into marriage counseling, and Jim seeks the advice of Toby regarding the matter. Jim and Pam end up opening up about things that have happened recently, like Jim not telling Pam about the job in Philly at first, and leaving her to deal with everything on her own. Jim says that it's all going to work out in the end, and Toby asks Jim when that end date is. Jim doesn't have an answer. Pam admits that she doesn't want Jim to do athlete anymore and move to Philly, but is afraid to give him an ultimatum. Jim admits to Toby that if she doesn't want to move to Philly, then they're going to need a lot more than counseling. Angela returns from divorcing Robert in the episode Living the Dream, and she's a wreck. Her hair is a mess, she's wearing ugly sweaters covered in cat hair, and she's stopped caring about her health. Basically, she's given up on life. She's also been forced to move out of her temporary apartment with Philip and had to give up a lot of her cats. Oscar feels bad for Angela, especially since this is partially his fault, and offers to let Angela and Philip stay with him until they get back on their feet. They would have separate rooms, separate bathrooms, and he would mind his own business. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me, considering the alternative is being homeless. In the car, Angela cries in front of Oscar, saying she still loves Dwight. Well, duh. David finds out that Andy has been using company money and resources to promote his image as an actor, so he plans to fire Andy. Andy, however, is already planning on resigning, so this makes David's job way easier. David then speaks one-on-one with Jim about the manager position, who has now quit Athlete in order to prioritize Pam and his family.
The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. I think she's right.
Clark wonders why Dwight isn't getting interviewed, and Dwight believes Jim would be the better fit for the job, having come to terms with his own limitations. Wow, I never thought that I'd hear those words. However, David reveals to Jim that he's considering Dwight for the manager position, not knowing about the gun incident, and Jim agrees that it should be him. David makes Dwight the new manager, and Dwight falls on his knees thanking him. After Dwight announces that he's the new manager of the office, Jim and Pam are happy for him. The guy's finally achieved his dream. For once, Dwight doesn't insult Jim. In fact, he offers him the assistant regional manager position, but Jim refuses, saying he'll gladly be assistant to the regional manager instead. The episode ends with Daryl telling Jim that somebody bought Athlete, and the buyer wants him to do a promotional tour across the country for 3 months. Jim says he can't do it because he can't let his job destroy his marriage with Pam. As they leave, it's revealed that Pam was listening to their conversation, and she feels guilty that Jim is giving up his dream to be with her. In the series' penultimate episode, AARM, we see that Jim and Dwight have surprisingly created a dynamic duo running the office and are no longer enemies. Angela brings Philip into work because his daycare won't take care of him anymore, and she and Oscar take care of Philip like they're a married couple. Who would have thought? After Jim makes Dwight the assistant to the regional manager, or AARM for short, Pam confronts Jim asking if he's happy in Scranton, not following his dream job. She's afraid that several years from now, Jim will resent her for this, and Jim tries to convince her that he never will. In a heartbreaking moment, Pam admits that she thinks she's not enough for Jim. Dwight can't help but study Philip since he's here and notices that he and Philip have a lot in common, like a love for Battlestar Galactica and eating the same paper. Sounds like a chip off the old block to me. He then conducts a test to see if Philip really is his son, where Philip must choose between $1 million or a beat. Philip chooses the beat. Now Dwight is more than certain than ever. Dwight confronts Angela, telling her that Philip should be brought up like a shroot and offers her a better place to live. Angela loves the offer, but says Philip isn't Dwight's son. To convince Pam that she's more than enough for her, Jim has the camera crew help him out by giving him access to all the footage, including them creating a montage of all their best moments. Pam watches the montage on her own as Dwight needs Jim for some advice, and as she watches, Jim convinces Dwight that he should marry Angela, now more than ever. The montage ends with a moment from the first Christmas party episode where Jim took back the letter he gave to Pam without her knowing. Turns out that Jim has had that letter the whole time, and he finally lets Pam read it. While Oscar takes Philip home, Dwight pulls Angela over and proposes to her on the side of the freeway. She says yes before he even finishes his speech. Finally. It's only taken the best part of a decade.
Pull over!
Why?
Move to the side of the road!
Why?
Pull over!
She then reveals that she lied to him. Philip is Dwight's son. Of course. I don't know, of course, that's not a twist. Turns out that she wanted Dwight to marry her because he wanted to marry her, and he passed the test. But he already knew that it was his son, of course. Meanwhile, Andy auditions for America's Next Acapella Sensation, and when auditions are full, Andy runs past security and barges his way onto the stage. The judges tell Andy that they're not hearing anybody else sing, but Andy's still determined and sings the Cornell fight song anyway. The judges can't take Andy seriously, causing him to have a tantrum. The episode ends with everybody from the office watching the premiere of their documentary. Everybody is nervous to watch, and Oscar remarks that after tonight, nothing's ever going to be the same, and he's right. And finally, we've reached the final episode, aptly called Finale. The episode begins 1 year after the documentary aired, and the camera crew is out getting bonus footage for the DVD. A lot has happened since then, with many of the Dunder Mifflin workers going their separate ways. Dwight is still regional manager and has made Dunder Mifflin more successful than ever. Stanley is retired, divorced, and lives in Florida carving birds out of wood. Kevin and Toby were both fired, and now Kevin owns a bar and Toby's a writer in New York City. There's some new faces in the office too. Oh, and Devin's back. What? You say that you don't remember Devin? Anyway, Andy's embarrassing audition went viral, made him an internet sensation, and he was asked to speak at Cornell during commencement week. Although it was a joke at first, they offered him a job. Things are actually going well. Good for you, Nard Dog. Oscar is now running for state senator and is the godfather to Dwight's son. Nellie lives in Poland now, and Daryl still works for Athlete, now renamed Athleap, at a branch in Austin, Texas. Lastly, Creed has faked his death after the documentary exposed him, and no one knows where he is. This dude was hiding a lot behind the scenes. Everyone's in town for a Q&A panel for the documentary, but first, all the men hop in a limo for Dwight's bachelor party because he's getting married to Angela the next day. During Angela's bachelorette party, Mose kidnaps her as part of a Schrute tradition and hides her at a bar. The groom, Dwight, must find her at a bar and buy everyone drinks in order to get her back. Turns out, Mose brought Angela to the bar owned by Kevin, who's still mad at Dwight for firing him, and Kevin refuses to serve Dwight. I really can't blame him. Turns out this was Jim's idea for Dwight to find closure with Kevin, and the two of them find it. Dwight buys everybody their drinks, and they rescue Angela from Mose's trunk. All the Scranton crew attends the panel, and the audience treats them like they're movie stars, which they find kind of awkward. A lot of the questions are geared towards Jim and Pam and their fairy tale romance, and Pam offers some heartwarming advice on love. Finally, a woman comes up asking Aaron that if she were to meet her birth mother, would she hate her? Aaron says that she wouldn't, and the woman reveals herself to be Aaron's birth mother. Wow, that's a turn up for the books. Aaron hugs her mom for the first time, and also meets her dad. At the wedding, it's revealed that Kelly and Ravi are there, as well as Ryan holding a newborn baby from a girl he dated but ran out on him. Dwight is ready to get married, but Jim informs Dwight that he can't be Dwight's best man because he's not older than the groom. According to Schrute tradition, Jim wishes there was something that he could do and then casually looks behind Dwight. Yeah, Michael came back to support the best assistant to the regional manager that he ever had. Jim tells the camera that this was his best prank ever.
I can't believe you came. That's what she said.
And although there's been some bangers, this one's pretty special. The wedding begins, and Phyllis volunteers to carry Angela down the aisle since her feet are still asleep from being locked in a trunk. The two of them finally become friends, and Dwight and Angela are married in traditional Schrute fashion. To nobody's surprise, Ryan and Kelly get back together and run off into the sunset, leaving Ravi with Ryan's baby. Ravi hears about this and without hesitation divorces Kelly, leaving the baby with Kevin. Nellie, who's always wanted a child, offers to take the baby and raise it. The wedding ends and Jim and Pam return home only to find Carol giving another couple a tour of their house. Pam reveals that she still feels bad for not letting him keep working for Athleap, so she wants Jim to join Daryl and Austin and take them with him. As you probably expect, Jim's very happy. Everybody heads back to the office for one last party with the sad knowledge that this will be the last time all of them will be together. Jim and Pam tell Dwight that they're leaving, but he fires them before they can finish, so he can give them a generous severance as one last act of friendship. Creed is revealed to be living in the office and plays one last song for them. Everybody remembers all the things that they did in the office, realizing they had something incredibly special in an unlikely place. Creed is finally arrested for as many crimes as everybody leaves, and they say goodbye for the very last time.
How did you capture what it was really like? How we felt, and how we made each other laugh, and how we got through the day.
Before leaving, Pam takes back her picture of the office, before taking one last look at the place that she called home for the last 10 years. And that's it. The entire story of The Office. I did not know that it was going to be so long. That's what she said. Sorry, but exposed to too much Michael Scott. I love getting the chance to relive every moment of the show, and honestly, I hadn't seen all of it when it was airing, so this was kind of cool. I hope you enjoyed the recap, and I'm going to catch you on the next one. See ya.